Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first general meeting of the People's Forum for Cooling the Planet, or PFCP. It is Tuesday, July 2nd, and last week was our first meeting, albeit not a general meeting. It was intended to be a volunteers pre-meeting, and this is the first general meeting. Now, notably, Guy is not here because he had a commitment that he could not change, though he may be joining us late if he has, time and energy and whatnot. Hopefully he will. And so what we're going to start off with now is we're going to go around the room and let everyone share really about any pertinent topic, including personal stuff, why you're here, what your perspective is, etc. Any questions that you have for the room. And with that, Stan had raised his hand. Feel free to raise your hand when you're ready to share, and we'll give everyone an opportunity to share. And then after which we may take a second pass. And I talked about a maximum of 5 minutes per share, if that sounds
Can we screen share too?
Yeah, you can. Marco, you want to make Stan co-host so he can screen share? And with that, I will turn it over to Stan. Take it away, Stan.
Hi, I'm a collector of stuff, and almost anything is stuff, but no, I'm collector of information, really. And in 1969, I heard the words Whole Earth Catalog, and I've been attempting to live up to that moniker ever since in my various productions. So my main one right now is called Other Networks, and it's my homage to the Whole Earth Catalog. And mostly what's in there, or a lot of what's in there, is all 900 and something episodes of Humanity Rising. And if you want to know more about Humanity Rising, I'll point you to the pages on Other Networks about that. I'm also collecting information about anybody who wants to be collected. And there's a way to add pages to Other Networks by clicking on a button on the front page. And it's othernetworks.org, and othernetworks.com is a commercial enterprise, which has nothing to do with me. The main concern I have right now is what I'm beginning to call the epidemic, a pandemic of hate and greed. That the world seems to be developing this disease where everybody is me, mine, and grab. And so that's a pet peeve of mine right now. And the climate is just or is one of the methodologies that people are using to gain attention for themselves. And here we are trying to fix it with cooling. And I have quite a number of references for climate cooling and other kinds of things in Other Networks. And I was going to show a page from Other Networks, but I'll put that off until later. And because it'd probably be nicer for me to ask somebody else to say hello. I mean, I don't know Jackie. I don't know Susan. I think I may have met Aaron. I don't know Extinctionalist, and I don't know James very well. And I don't know Robert, and I don't know Rebecca. So all you people can show me a picture of yourself or say hello, and I will offer to create pages in Other Networks for whatever you want to talk, whatever you want to share with the world. I'm going to hold up. I mean, that's done for right now. Whoever's next. Robert.
Thank you, Stan. And yes, welcome, Robert. Welcome again. You're muted, Robert.
Yes, thank you. Nice to meet you all. This is Message Robert from Uganda in East Africa. a founder and the CEO of Rejoice Africa Foundation. Rejoice Africa Foundation is a non-profit charitable organization registered to operate in the Republic of Uganda, aiming at climate restoration, health for all, poverty alleviation. And we are working under the theme, investing in women and children to save the next generation from the climate crisis. So for us, we have been doing tree planting, agroforestry, kitchen gardens, and food forest and indigenous trees to increase the carbon absorption from the air and also to increase the nutrition and also to increase the income, the family income to reduce the poverty. And also we have also encouraged to reduce, to work on sanitation and hygiene from the communicable diseases using tippet taps and washing facilities. I'm happy to share our website in the chat, and I'm happy to join this Cooling Our Planet movement to work together in saving the next generation, not only doing the theory part, but doing the practical part. So for us, we are on the ground doing the practical part, planting trees, sensitizing the community, involving the women care groups, because those women care groups, they are the one drivers to save the next generation, and also trying to support them with the scholastic materials, those children, because also we are investing in the children. And if they learn, they can get to understand what climate crisis is. So my request is to work together in this struggle to save the next generation. So if you have a connection to those people who can partner with Rejoice Africa Foundation to let it do a big project, they are highly welcome. And if you wish to come and discuss more details, how we operate, how you can cooperate, partner with Rejoice Africa Foundation, you are most welcome. I'm going to send the website and also my email in the chat. Then you will reach out to me until we meet next week. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Beautiful. And thank you for all you're doing. So happy you're here. All right. Up next is Jackie. And just raise your hand if you want to get in the queue. We'd love to hear from everyone, but no pressure. Go ahead, Jackie.
Thank you, Hyman. My dad was an organic farmer back before they used the word. And I was dropped from the sky. No, I was born in Roswell, New Mexico, and my dad saw it drop from the sky. And so I learned at a very early age how much governments don't tell you the truth. So I learned to listen to my dad. And in 1962, when Silent Spring came out, I knew I was on the right track in listening to my dad. My dad worked 28 years in the military, fearing that he was going to be killed, or I was going to be killed, or my mother, because he saw what came from the sky, and it was not a weather balloon. And I've progressed through my life recognizing my father was right. We should always leave the earth so it looks like we weren't there. And so I've worked really hard at this. My husband and I, my husband's a Vietnam veteran with a lot of health issues because of 4 years of Agent Orange exposure. And he's just holding on. And we're in a real mess now because of our belief system. Back in 2007, October 2007, I was finishing my doctorate at the University of Arizona, which is why I know Guy McPherson. And Dr. John Overpeck spoke, and a bunch of other people on climate change. 70,000 people had been invited to this talk. And there were 3 different schools: Northern Arizona University, Arizona State, and the University of Arizona. And there were 34 of us in the room. It was the same day that Al Gore received the, with Al Gore, Dr. Overpeck, they call him Peck, received the Nobel Prize for the Environment. And my husband was not one of the 34 invited, but that's how many came. And at that point, I looked at him and he looked at me and I said, we're getting out of here. At the time, 32% of the people in the United States believed in climate change. 60 did in India and 58 in Mexico. So we went to Mexico and I finished up my degree there, living on leased land that an indigenous family owned, because we feel that's the way you should do it. You don't buy the land, you help out somebody else. And we were there for several years. They just celebrated the 15th anniversary, 15-year anniversary last Saturday of the building that my husband donated his time to build when he was in better health. So that hundreds, in fact, there's over 100 kids there this summer. They have programs all year to teach children how to read so that they can get into school. Because when we first came there, anybody over 30 couldn't read. And now there's a 3-story building. My husband built the first 2 stories before his health gave out, called Resplendor. And because of me pushing, I always wear this, which is a little figure holding the earth, precious earth in his hands. They have a whole program called Earth Walk, which was part of what they had at the University of Arizona. They even bought another piece of land so the kids can camp on it and teach the kids about the earth. When we moved here to Ecuador because of my husband's health, we got another land lease, but it was a greenwashing. It was a total scam. And we have been in and out of court, including the last time was yesterday, for her trying to get us to go away, because we built this Eco Hobbit house. It's about 600 square feet, dry composting toilet, off grid. And the on grid is actually water and wind, which is why we don't want to move. Of course, we put our life into it. We planned it for 30 years. So I'm really excited about Stan giving the offer that I can get. I put it together a little PowerPoint, but I'm sure he can do a much better job telling me what to do, to try to let people know how many people are out there just to take advantage of you. The woman who owns this piece of property, it's 516 acres, 209 hectares. And we did have a 0.5% fenced in because her administrator insisted we do that. And 4.5 years later, she plowed it down. She's put holes in our water tank. She's called the police on us. I mean, it's just been a real nightmare. But it's a good example of what is going on in this world. And the reason we haven't given up, well, there's a lot of reasons, but we believe this is a shrine. This is a classroom, a living classroom. You can drive a truck on this. It's dirt up here. It's to let people know you could live a lot simpler life. You don't have to be an idiot. I mean, so many people say, oh, well, you're there with all those indigenous people. Of course, they can adapt to it. No, I have a doctorate. My husband has postgraduate work. You don't have to be somebody that's poor to live a decent life and respect the earth. And I've been told by a lot of people that the young people are watching because they want to know if the capitalist who owns this land, she's divorced now, but 1 year her husband made $19 million because he was in the film business. If the capitalist wins, then that I can't deal with. I can't. We've actually been told she has a contract on our lives. And if we move, then she'll have us killed because you can blame it on the drug cartels here in Ecuador. So I think that it's very important that we all understand that there's just too much greed. Thanks.
Wow, Jackie, my goodness. I had no idea you've been through so much there. And thank you so much for being here. What an asset. BJ is up next. Great to see you, BJ. And
Thank you.
And raise your hand when you're ready to share. Just get in the queue. Go ahead, BJ. Sorry.
That's okay. Hello, everybody, and thank you, Jackie. My goodness. And thank you also, Stanley. I also go by Rebecca, and I live in Central Texas. I'm a volunteer for Climate Healers. I mean, that is a majority of my volunteer work. I also like to come into Jamin's room. Thank you so much, Jamin and Marco and everybody that works here, Michael and all. With Climate Healers, we have a convergence every 3 months. At the very first convergence, we were going to try to, we read from the World Wildlife Planetary Report that we only had a few years left before all mammals, all vertebrate life, not just mammals, would be gone, because every few years they do a report, they count the animals, and it's just going down to 2026. So we had a big conference, and we decided we couldn't wait and just have one every year. So we have one every 3 months. And we have various speakers, and it sounds like some of you would be good speakers for us sometimes. So it's a variety of speakers, from people that are just starting little vegan projects, or people who are replanting wildlife or starting new. We have somebody from the Sadhana Forest. Sometimes we have physicians. So it is called Vegan Convergence of the Peoples. And you're welcome to come. It's 2 days, January 27 and 28. That's just one of the things I'm working on. I'm also working on Food Healers events. But what I read recently was, I don't know how many of you have heard of Dave Borlace. He has a podcast called Just Have a Think. And he does a lot of scientific explanations of what's going on here and there. And he recently did one, and it included land use. And I'm very interested in it. It differs somewhat from what Dr. Rao says. And so I'm wanting to examine that deeper and further and have more climate discussions about that, about land use. And I appreciate all of you here. And that's my introduction. Thanks.
Beautiful, BJ. Thank you so much. Thank you for all you're doing. It's just been lovely getting to know you and collaborating with you. I call you sister because I feel you as my sister. And
thank you, James.
yeah, and I want to welcome those who've just joined in the last bit that I haven't been able to welcome yet. Mark McCormick from Alberta, Canada. Christopher Dennis from British Columbia, Canada. Jimena from Mexico. Welcome, Jimena, sister. And we're just going around the room, and everyone's kind of giving a 2 to 5 minute share. Looks like Deep Post, and I don't know what else to call you, Deep Post, because I don't see your real name in there, but it looks like Deep Post wants to share next. Just raise your hand when you're ready to share, or before you're ready to share. Get in the queue. Go ahead, Deep Post. Welcome.
Yeah, so I go by many names. Going South is another name I use on the YouTubes, and so I'm basically a writer here in Nuuk, Greenland, capital of Greenland, and yeah, I told some of you about a giant iceberg down in the fjord right next to me before we started this, and it's always exciting, cool to try and photograph or film it, for later use or whatever. But my photography equipment isn't really that good, so it looks good when you're filming, but it doesn't look good when you come home and look on your computer. So yeah, basically my earlier activism years and decades to these days it's no longer activism per se. It's more like writing, fiction, treating it in some kind of artistic way. That's sort of my path in life, I guess. And other than that, I'm getting old, and as I get older, I kind of appreciate having the low temperature, the low stress, the nice and quiet environments that we have in Greenland, and also reach access to the wilderness and the glaciers and the fjords and all of that kind of thing. and I also appreciate to have less kind of drama. We're in this collapse already, and to have things collapsing around you, and wars and rumors of war and all that kind of stuff. So even though most people would say that Greenland is very, very boring and quiet, I actually appreciate where I live and how things are. Yeah, I think that's enough for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Deep Post. Great to have you here. Thank you for that fresh and cool perspective. And may it remain cool indefinitely. That's part of why we're here. That's actually why we're here. All right. And again, raise your hand whenever you're ready to share or just to get in the queue. And Aaron, go for it. Aaron, great to see you here.
Hi, Jamin. Right, I'm a techie person, have always been from a very early age. I'm working on solutions to communication solutions, old style internet to modern, what I call Web 4.0 now, seeing as Web 3.0 is nicked by the crypto people. And I'm trying to do the jobs of about 10 people. I'm defending Just Stop Oil on all the forums on YouTube, etc. Because nobody else seems to be doing that, and it's good way of getting all my climate knowledge up to buff to be able to defend the cause against all the climate deniers. So I deal with climate deniers on a daily basis, sometimes up to 20 comment replies and stuff like that. So I'm doing that, but I do that late at night before I go to sleep. Good time to do it, not but and me and Jamin, we had a good conversation last time and got on the same page. I've looked at your video once last week and read part of the documents. I was wondering if it would be possible for you to do another presentation today as a refresh, so we can go over it again, and then so I can take notes and fill things in from there. I think it'd be a good idea if we maybe on other networks and as already exists, have a list of earth cooling techniques or technologies or whatever mechanisms to cool the earth. So there's some base reference list we have. I did make some other notes, but I seem to they're not obvious. So I'm trying to get together. I don't know if anyone knows the Usenet that was in the 2000, around the year 2000. It was very prevalent. I'm putting up a Usenet server on my little web servers. This, believe it or not, this little thing that looks like ENIAC off of Blake 7 is a little web server. I have about 6 of these. They're very powerful and they don't take a lot of energy, a lot of power, so they're green. So I'm working on green technologies to run on them, including I can run the Usenet server on them. They've got lots of memory, lots of processing power. So I'm working on that to be put in place. I'm also working on I'm working on something that's basically going to be like Facebook, but much better. With all the bells and whistles that Facebook should have written because they've got the money to do it and haven't. So that's me really. Trying to make a difference in whatever way I can with what I know. Okay, I'll pass the ball.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Aaron. And what an asset you are to the meeting. And I really appreciate our long conversation that we had last Tuesday. And thank you so much for watching the stuff I sent out. And I'll be happy to revisit that. And in the meantime, let's see, Michael Prent joined, but then I think he popped off. And then Peter, is that our Peter? Peter M. Anyway, hopefully it is. And we're just going around the room sharing. We're probably about halfway through. And so just raise your hand when you're ready to share, like Mark just did. Love to hear from everyone, but no pressure. Okay, Mark, take it away. And we're sharing about like 2 to 5 minutes kind of stuff at this first pass, and then we can do another pass, etc. Okay, go ahead, Mark, take it away. Great to see you.
Happy to be here. A little bit late, but I had some device failures and got over them. So I'm always honored to come into your space, Shaman, because I think we are having the right stuff sort of come together to change society on a massive level. And I know that's why you're here. It's why I come, is because we're not afraid to think big, because we need big changes. And just to say a bit about me, I've been sort of an activist type looking for a spiritual, scientific paradigm shift for about 20 years. And that's sort of culminated over the last few 10,000 hours into something we're calling New World Spirit. And it's a movement with 64 wisdom teams that's going to become hopefully a new world inner government, a government that's from the inside out and listens to people and has a new kind of universal logic, which works like ecology. It's like an ecological, holistic, organic living logic that indigenous wisdom had, and what Jesus and Buddha and all the prophets were talking about when you're in balance with the world, when you're in the truth. And so today I taught my first session of this divine word from one of these philosophers we reference. And we think that the way we sense make, the Chizzy, the collective human superintelligence, the meaning of our words has two different sides. And we're teaching a side that is missing, I think, in terms of creating rapid trust and rapid cooperation to generate solutions to the meaning crisis, AI, CRISPR, world wars, climate change, and mental health. So in this group, we focus more, I guess, on the climate change. And we're trying to start these grow ops worldwide that would solve the soil and composting scale-up problem, provide more nutritious food. They're called Earth Power Lodges. So they don't just grow organic food with no pesticides, no chemicals, no oil, hydrocarbon fertilizers. And it does about 3 years of growth in about 3 months. And it's all local, and it's hydroponics. You can grow different types of crops. So we calculated for my city here in Edmonton, Canada, that it would take about 2,000 to 3,000 of these devices, these grow op stations, which are each about $2.5 million. So it would cost about $250 million to basically feed our entire city completely organic, completely compost, no pesticides, and much more nutritionally dense food. It produces power on top of it as a byproduct, and it just uses biochar and LJ. So it's incredible. So for the climate environment, I think that's a quick win that you can build communities around, because everybody understands food. And I think we can leverage that into basically saying we have this new authority, this divine kind of authority on top of just really pragmatic, simple ecological solutions that we can scale up very quickly. Only takes about 3 months to build one of these grow ops too. And I think if we made the right partnerships worldwide, we can at least tackle that side of things. And I think that a lot of the transportation, a lot of the oil costs, a lot of the oil stuff will be surprisingly hit fast and cause multiplier effects that I think would start reducing carbon. But ultimately, I think it would create a community that could support this Marine Cloud brightening, where we can buy ourselves more time while we're buying those carbon sinks to take carbon out of the atmosphere. And I really feel like bonding around good, nutritious food, encouraging people to go vegan with gourmet vegan food, could really supercharge what we're trying to do with Marine Cloud brightening. So that's me. Thanks, Jamin.
Beautiful. Thank you, Mark. And thank you for all you're doing. I've been really impressed with the Ever Living meetings and Hegelian logic, universal logic. Really amazing stuff there. All right. Well, welcome, Michael, from Michigan. Good to see you. And we're just kind of going around the room sharing here. Everyone's taking 2 to 5 minutes to kind of share a bit more about themselves and why they're here, etc. So feel free to raise your hand. We're probably about a little over halfway through sharing around the room. So whenever you're ready to share, go ahead and raise your hand and you can share. Okay, Susan, great to see you and welcome. Go for it. And you just got to unmute there. There you go.
Thanks, everyone. Hi. So just a little bit about me. So I don't have a science background. I consider myself just a concerned human. And but I feel like I've spent most of my adult life trying to understand the world. And one of the revelations that, with regard to the subject, that kind of really opened my eyes was listening to an interview about 4 years ago with Chris Hedges, and he was interviewing Derek Jensen and about his book, Bright Green Lies. And that was a turning point for me, because I could no longer see any legitimacy in the discussion that had been happening for a long time about green alternatives or a Green New Deal or any of that. So his work led me to Guy McPherson's work, and I've been participating in his Zoom calls and just learning. And I have to say that I think where I'm sort of landing or have landed is planetary hospice seems to be the only path that I think I see. I see its value. I'm concerned about a panic that may take place. And frankly, honestly, I don't know anything about geoengineering. And maybe I'll learn more about that. But I'm just here because this is a subject matter that I've been studying and learning about for the last 4 years. And so thank you, James, for hosting this. And it's nice to meet all of you.
Thank you, Susan. It is so good to have you here and to hear your perspective, coming from a non-scientific background, just a concerned, member of the human race and resident on planet Earth. And I mean, I wish everyone were like you, Susan, in the sense that the vast majority of humanity are just asleep to what's going on. And is it that they're asleep? Is it that they're blinded to it? Is it they just don't care? I mean, these are questions that I go to bed with every night and wake up with every morning. We're living in this weird world, something like, a secret love child between Invasion of the Body Snatchers and Idiocracy. And I mean that in all seriousness, though I use plenty of analogies and metaphors in my speak because I find them to be kind of like wormholes to the point, if you will. But it's just really refreshing to be with people who are busy in the inquiry, and who really care. So we will be talking about geoengineering, as I believe it is the singular way out of our exponential overheating that we're in the midst of right now. Strong, just like an advanced stage of cancer needs an advanced, strong intervention, right? Meditation may not do it at that point. Drinking green tea may not do it at that point. You may need something much bigger, right? Whether it's chemotherapy or concentrated cannabis, but some significant intervention, and that's where I think we're at. But anyway, I'm jumping the gun here. So I just wanted to make sure everyone has a chance to share and say hello to the room and share for 2 to 5 minutes or whatever. So, and Jackie, I see you've got your hand up. I'll let you, if it's a short share, great, but because it looks like it's a short share. Okay, so short share is welcome. You can jump the queue if you just have like a quick reaction. And then Marco had his hand up. So go ahead, Jackie.
Okay, to your point of saying that people don't seem to be asleep, I I've been 4 years with the Climate Psychology Alliance, but I heard about this Dr. Lise Van Sternen, and she started the Climate Psychiatry Alliance. And I heard her on May 25th explain that what's happening to her in this, because a psychiatrist can prescribe drugs. She says, all these people keep coming in, they keep asking for drugs. And if I ask them what it is about, they say it's either their marriage, their work, or their teenager. Okay. And she says, then I say, well, what about the climate? They all go, oh, I can't do anything about that. And they shut up. So her feeling is that everybody's stressed about it. They just don't talk about it.
Yeah, good point. Good point. It's hard not to notice at this point with so much evidence. I mean, just look out your window. So the priority is still going around the room and allowing folks to share for 2 to 5 minutes. But in the meantime, short shares like that, short reactions, welcome. And Marco has his hand up, I presume, for his share. Marco, welcome, brother.
Yeah, I'm going to start by responding to what you said, Jackie, about the, people not feeling they can do anything about it, or, I go back to a conversation I had with my physical therapist about 3 years ago, or actually longer ago than that, when I was fighting deep underground nuclear waste dump a half-mile off the shore of Lake Huron, which is connected to all the other Great Lakes, 25% of the world's surface fresh water. And they thought it was a brilliant idea to dig a 2,000-foot deep hole in porous rock and put all the nuclear, what they called mid-level or low-level nuclear waste from 20 power plants throughout Ontario into this hole, and then pour some cement over the top when it was full and say it was safe forever. So that's kind of where I got in. That was actually about back in 2012 or 13. And I was talking to my physical therapist about, fighting this. And then we talked about global warming, and she's like, stop. She said, stop. Now, she's an intelligent woman, well-to-do, running a business. And she said, I have kids that are not quite in college. I have one in college. I have my practice here. I have, a mortgage. I have all these things. I can't take on thinking about that. If I think about that, I can't function in my life. She said, it's too much. Thank you that you're doing something about it, but please don't even talk to me about it again, because I can't. So that's where I think the majority of people are. They just can't take it on, and it's understandable. So, but somebody has to step up, and that's why we're here. And yeah, this is what I've done, full time since then, because I had something that got right in my face, this nuclear dump that was obviously a bad idea. But it's led to, much greater things now. And when it comes to, not people say they don't know anything about geoengineering, or or these groups that say geoengineering is bad, just flat out. It's like geoengineering is what got us where we're at. Every time you use electricity from a power plant that's spewing, greenhouse gases, you're geoengineering. Every time you start your car, you're geoengineering the atmosphere. And this is what we have to understand. Every action we take has a consequence. And we need to learn, we need to educate each other to understand those consequences. And not just act out of fear always of what we don't know when it comes to, specifically at this point, geoengineering. It got us in this mess. It can get us out of this mess, but it's anything we're suggesting as a group here, we have suggested, is like a temporary fix so that we go back and do all the important things that we should have done, restore the Amazon, you know, in a natural capacity, not just plant any kind of tree back where there were trees. You know, you have to restore it to what it was with the diversity. Nature is very complex and very intricate and very beautiful, and we need to restore the beauty of the planet, and that'll bring us back our health. And with that, I'm complete for now. Pass the talking feather.
Thank you, Marco. Beautiful. And for those who don't know, Marco is the, as in singular, pillar of this whole Zoom space, which goes pretty much 24/7, thanks to Marco. All right, and welcome, Lena. And we're going around the room sharing, so raise your hand whenever you're ready to share, 2 to 5 minutes or so about who you are, why you're here, etc. Meanwhile, Aaron has his hand up. Go for it, Aaron.
Hi, yeah, I'd like to pick up on things. I think existential threat, as in the existence, the threat to existence, is something that people find it very hard to comprehend. And I think with climate change, there's what I'm now terming the climate conceptual hiatus. It's a gap or a space of conceptual understanding that is there because of information impedance, because people haven't acquired information, they're resistant to information because it frightens them. Right-wingers in particular will resist anything that's outside of their bubble to protect their bubble. On a mental level, on a physical level, on an emotional level. So for them to step outside of that bubble that they've formed over a long period of time from their family, when they're brought up, it's a whole system. We've all got our life paths, and we're following those life paths. We get conditioned in our lives paths. I was conditioned not to talk about climate change because I talked to when in the 90s I saw the David Attenborough BBC programs on climate change, and that gave me everything I needed to know at that time, and that's stood the test of time. I've watched Greenland. I use Greenland as my barometer for what's going on with the climate. It's my main source of, because everything else is dependent upon its meltwater. AMOC, the rise in sea levels on the Arctic and the Antarctic. Now to geoengineering. Geoengineering is something that people don't like that name. I think we need to come up with a better name. Although there's good and there's bad geoengineering, I think that is that's a threat to some people, particularly because of a lot of the conspiracy theory stuff that was going on 10 years ago or so. I think what we need to look at is Earth systems comprehension. We need to be able to comprehend and understand the Earth systems in order to know the right ways of going about starting experiments in order to re-steer the Earth into a better climate zone. Terra Preta, the Amazon was built upon basically animal and human waste and pottery over thousands and thousands of years of building up these mounds, and that Terra Preta, that it's full of these amazing enzymes and bacteria and all sorts that make the black earth or the Terra Preta so fertile. But in areas where there's trees formed on it, it's become a very thin layer. So yeah, that's what I wanted to add to what Marco said.
Beautiful. Thank you, Aaron. Wow, really good stuff. And I agree with you. We need a better name than geoengineering. Sounds quite ominous to the uninitiated. Very hard to distinguish between good and bad geoengineering. There's a tendency to throw the baby out with the bathwater, and there have certainly been some very stupid ideas proposed for geoengineering. All right, with that, Michael, welcome back. Michael, go for it. Okay, you're muted, and okay, sounds like you're taking a pass. That's fine. Oh,
Testing 1, 2.
yeah, we can hear you now. We can hear you, Mike.
Okay, thank you all. I'm privy to a book called From Angels to Zanzibar, written in 1980 by my late friend Tom Burnett. It's a channeled work, and it talked about how people were being born right around 1980, 79, 80, that will be really important to solutions. Those folks would be welcome in our group. They're about 42 to 45 years old, and they have some serious solutions that we could tap into. I'm told by this book, but that book is available to anybody here. If you put your address in the chat box, I'll mail one to you as a gift. I'm the co-producer of the book, and I wrote the foreword. But the other thing is, I believe in music changing humanity, and I believe that we can have a huge concert for Earth, whereby our goal is to use 8% of the Department of Defense budget towards climate solutions. That would be about $70 billion of the fiscal year 2024 U.S. budget. So I'm moving towards that, and I think a major concert on behalf of the Earth would be in order for early 2025. I'm working towards that end. So thank you all.
Thank you, Michael. Yeah, no, music definitely moves the world. And I love singing in public with my Darth Vader costume. And for those of you who don't know, we'll talk more about that later. Meanwhile,
you're booked.
I am booked. Thank you. All right, Lena, great to have you back. Take it away, Lena.
Hey, I just wanted to say hello to everyone. Yeah, I have a really personal and deep relationship with the earth. And I have a dad who was a journalist, and at age 10, he brought me to the jungle for the first time. I am a refugee, and that was to heal me after we survived a really bad tear gas attack, me and my mama. So I've had all of these, I've seen the destruction and I've seen the healing firsthand. And that's kind of through my journey. And I've always returned to the earth. And engineering to me is simply to simply make something, to construct something for a probable outcome, right? There's a very simple definition of engineering. And I think through academia, through all of these systems that don't work anymore, we have completely lost the meaning of what engineering really means, and whether there be good. And yeah, and like it was said, there's good and bad engineering, but I'm here to approach the whole topic with curiosity, because yeah, what would I be? Where would I be if I wasn't on this earth? If the earth was to crumble, I would cease to exist, as we would all. And that to me is extremely it's just an extremely strange and eerie and horrible topic. Am I scared? Yeah, but am I okay with being scared? Totally. I think we should all have a bit of fear, and we should take that fear and work through it. And that's what's going to build our movements, to allow the fear, allow the grief, and allow the pain of witnessing the destruction of our earth, and through that rise and learn and live and breathe the solution. We need to learn, live, and breathe the solution right now. So yeah, thank you, Jamin, for creating this space. Thank you, Marco, for keeping it going, and all the beautiful faces that I know and see here. Love you all. I'm excited to hear the juicy ideas and potential solutions for this catastrophe. Thanks, passing the feather.
Yeah, I'm just gonna have a quick reply there. The fear is, I think it's good that you pointed out fear can be good. Fear is like the wisdom. It gives us the wisdom to protect ourselves so that we can learn to carry forward. So fear has its place and it's important, and we need to embrace the fear. Thank you for pointing that out, Lena.
And it's a metaphor, but our tears can end our grief, and our tear and our collective hearts, along with our collective minds, but our collective hearts can be, we can replenish the rivers, and the oceans, and through that, and the minds and the dedicated work of the scientists and the solution seekers, we can bring hope back to humanity. And through bringing hope back to humanity, we can start coming up with solutions that will rise. And I came into geoengineering being one of the naysayers, like laughing at marine cloud brightening, and slowly I'm learning and growing and allowing the ideas, and it's a beautiful process. Thank you, Jamin, for helping me to open my heart and mind through a year, probably over a year of, just gently listening and being and exploring these ideas. So yeah, thanks all. I'm gonna mute and just listen today. And Stan,
Hello.
thank you
Hi.
for other networks.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you, Lena. Thank you so much. Wow. What a space. I'm just so grateful for all of us here coming together and daring to look and daring to jump into the conversation and say, hey, what can we do? What can we do together? And I believe this is the seed crystal, the little ice-9 crystal, for those who have read Kurt Vonnegut's Cat's Cradle, the seed crystal that can transform the entire world. So more of my thoughts later. We've got James up, followed by Aaron. Go ahead, James, from Cork City, Ireland.
Thanks, Chairman. Hi all. Good to see all of you again from last week. Yeah, I mean, I'm obviously, my name, James Desmond. I'm in Cork City here at the moment. Sorry, I have a few people, but as well. But yeah, first of all, to Lena, I appreciate Lena bringing that up as well. And yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it was probably fair that led me down the road of trying to figure out if Guy McPherson was actually not accurate in what he was saying, putting all the pieces together. Like, I knew he wasn't saying that he was putting out the peer-reviewed literature, but he was putting the pieces together on what he was saying. Like, so I didn't believe it at first because I was afraid of it. Like, and at the time I had been, I went back to education, and I was in college at the time, and so I started doing a lot of research on that, on the global warming, on Guy McPherson and global warming, and it was fear that motivated me. Simple and plain, it was fear that motivated me, because like yourself, Susan, I'm here out of genuine concern. The concern has, arisen out of fear, and then the concern now has led to frustration, and that's where I am at the moment, is very frustrated and angry with society and the general attitude, which is, as Jim has said earlier, we're living in an idiocracy at the moment, like, you know what I mean? And it's a manipulation of society, what's going on, like. So yeah, fear is a good thing. And at this stage, no, when if you're not afraid, then you're not in the know. You don't really understand the problem if you're not afraid. And fear is a good, if not the best motivator to actually motivate a person into action. No, yes, there's the other fight or flight method and everything else, but you know, action is the fight. So I've been here for the last 4 years with Jim, and because I believe in this idea of collective human intelligence, a collective human becoming a collective human super intelligence in a sense, even you know with the use of the different types of you know technology that's available to us and everything online, we can incorporate that into collective human intelligence, because it's important that it's us communicating with each other, and that everything is trashed out in conversation, not left to you know an algorithm or whatever, or to our so-called leaders, as we say, because at the end of the day, let's face it, they have dropped the ball, and or else they're just ignoring the problem. They are aware of it. I mean, if Guy McPherson has been aware of this, and there's been a campaign against it for a long time, and he's not just the only one. I have a friend of mine here as well, another fellow Irishman. He's in the European, you know, in the European Union himself, and you know he's been, you know, he's fairly active himself in trying to warn people of the reality of the climate and everything else. But he's confirmation for me as well. Taking taking all of these people on board, there's nothing but confirmation as to what's happening in you know to the reality of our situation. The latest I think if any of you saw, guys, the latest report out is that basically only about 6% of all scientists surveyed in a recent survey, only about 6% of them think we're still under and can keep under 1.5. The rest of them think we're, either 42% think we're on a trajectory for over 3 degrees or 4 degrees. And, you know, the higher number are more or less keep thinking that we're definitely going to go over 2 or 3. Either way, that's you know, the figures and the point, as Jamin keeps mentioning, it's the, and as Guy mentions, it's what's taken place, you know, between the temperature rising. It's the effects of all of those incremental degrees. So, yeah, fear, sorry, no, I'm sidetracking. So, fear is my motivator. I'm, you know, I'm a parent. I'm concerned for my daughter. I'm concerned for my family, my community, and then the world in general, and the way the situation is going. All life on earth is in jeopardy now. So what can I do about it? I don't know. I'm an artist, but that's about the only qualification there. I'm just a concerned citizen, like Susan said herself, and I'm here and have been here for a long time now, out of concern. But I have to admit, I'm at the stage now of frustration, as I said. But that's basically frustration with society, as I said. So yeah, where am I? I'm here. I'm delighted to see all of you here as well, because as you know, as we said earlier, you know, somebody has to stand up and do something, or at least explore these ideas that are out there and available to us, so that we can at least appease ourselves as to, you know, is it worthy? Is it a worthwhile cause? Am I wasting my time? Whatever the questions you're asking, but you know, it's necessary for someone to do what we're doing, and the more the merrier is what I say. So thanks everyone, and yeah, thanks for being here, and I'll pass the feather on to whoever's next. Thanks.
Thank you, James. I just want to welcome Jamie Gilchrist, who recently joined, and Dante, welcome. And Aaron has his hand up. Go ahead, Aaron.
Picking up again on previous conversation with James. Does anyone know of this spaceship Earth concept? That we are living on a little blue bubble, then we have to work out how to fly it, how to drive it, how to understand it, to get the controls of the system, and to be able to guide it back into a safe zone. I'm really what I think one of the main problems is the IPCC's 2050 agenda. It's a distraction. It's based upon 4-year out-of-date scientific research that doesn't even acknowledge the tipping points, compound tipping points at the time. Now, I think what we need to do is to try and get a plan. I don't know whether we can produce a white paper or something like that. We have to look. The thing that we really need to work out is how to scale and how to connect existing groups, how to bring them together. And hopefully if I can scale my technology fast, get my technology in place fast enough and scale it, that will allow us to connect in a modern way. Before that, I'm going to set up all these Usenet groups and maybe a mailing list. So that people who are more familiar and work with on mailing list can use that, and people who can maybe we can start teaching how to use the Usenet on Thunderbird or whatever news clients. Yeah, so it's connection and scaling that I think are going to be our main obstacles. I think the technologies are already there for geoengineering or learning to fly our Earthship, well, not Earthship, spaceship Earth. And I think that we need to raising awareness with the right people. We need to find the right people, connect with the right people, and we need to put in place structures that will allow us to do that easily and to grow and to connect the right people together. I was really impressed with Dan Miller at the moment. He's taken all his climate chat. He's taken all the arguments that have gone on, all the discrepancies and things, and he goes through and he discusses them all. So that's on YouTube. So he's definitely worth catching up on his last month's or more's worth of videos. Okay, I'm going to butt out now for a while.
Aaron, we really do need to talk about this stuff together. I publish other networks, and it's a compendium of other networks. That's what it's for. And I've been thinking about how to connect people since I heard the words Whole Earth Catalog in 1969 on an acid trip, which I'm still on. And one of my projects that I've been talking to people about is an operating manual for spaceship Mother Earth written by women. And I've been talking to women to see if I can get them to self-organize around this, and so I can get out of the way. I'm done.
All right, beautiful. Aaron,
I actually have a document to put in the chat, so I'll put it in there.
Very good.
On that.
Maybe, Stanley, we could have a session either on Zoom or I don't know if anyone knows Jitsi. It's like a free Zoom. It's open source, and it's what I use with the W3. Well, what the W3C our community social media group.
I have my own
group
Zoom account, and I run meetings.
Oh, that's cool.
Every day.
Right. Okay. So, shall we set up a meeting at some point near the end of this meeting?
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, great. Cool.
Yeah.
Great, nice one.
All right, beautiful. For those who joined late, we've been going around the room and sharing for the last hour and change. And so if you haven't shared yet, feel free to raise your hand to share for 2 to 5 minutes, kind of give a little intro to yourself. And I haven't actually done my share. So in the absence of hands up, I will share a bit here. So first of all, this is the PFCP, People's Forum for Cooling the Planet, is a co-creation amongst many of us here, and now all of us here. If you're here now, you are co-creating a People's Forum for Cooling the Planet, and thank you. And the basic idea is, I mean, if you look at what I would call the usual suspects of sectors of the economy and segments of society, You know, you've got government, you've got the private sector, the religious sector, the nonprofit sector, academia, you know, military. I could go on and on. Most of those sectors have taken a stab, if you will, saying, okay, we are academia. We're going to publish all these papers and do all this research. Or we are government, and we're going to create carbon taxes and incentives and this and that, you know. But all of those efforts by all of those segments and sectors have failed to even move the needle even a little bit. We're just barreling towards the edge of the cliff, if any, and we're actually accelerating towards the edge of the cliff. And some would argue that our front wheels have actually lost contact with the ground and are over the edge of the cliff. And it's not so much a matter of applying brakes as finding a parachute in the Thelma and Louise convertible. But enough of those analogies. The bottom line is we're on a very perilous path. There have been nowhere near effective solutions developed or even so much as talked about, right? Look at how the conversations around those, and I hate to use the word, but there is no substitute yet. We're working on that, and let's work hard and fast at that. But the word is geoengineering, right? Which for many has become a bad word. Look at the very fact that it's become a bad word, right? So very, very few of us humans on Earth, percentage-wise, even know that we're in as bad a crisis as we are in. I would say probably maybe 1% or even less than 1% know how bad the crisis is. And a crisis compounding that crisis of disinformation is that even those 1% who realize the state that we're in and the urgency, perhaps 99% of them think that the answer is decarbonization, right? The reality is, Shannon, sister, great to see you. Welcome. The reality is that decarbonization alone would cause the overheating to accelerate even faster than what is happening right now because of the loss of global dimming, the loss of the aerosol masking effect. And so we're at a state where I would say on the order of 1/100th of 1% of humanity, 1% of 1%, if you've been following the little math that I've been doing in the last couple of minutes, 1/100th of 1% of us even understands that the magnitude of the crisis that we're in, and that decarbonization alone will not do the trick, cannot do the trick, and in fact takes us in the opposite direction. So if you do the math, 1/100th of 1% of humanity is 800,000 people. So let's think of ourselves for a moment as representatives of those 800,000 people, a small city worth of the planet's population, or at least a medium-sized city, are the only ones who actually understand how bad the crisis is and have an inkling of what it's going to take to get us out of this crisis. I happen to believe that 800,000 people, we are enough. That number is sufficient to come together and form a collective human intelligence that can then benevolently orchestrate the rest of humanity into coming to the realizations of the reality that we're in, and that we need to come together as the people, hence a people's forum for cooling the planet. So back to what I was saying, I'm going to backtrack for what I was saying like 3 minutes ago. If you look at all the sectors and segments of society, you know, government, academia, the private sector, nonprofit sector, et cetera, that have all completely failed at coming up with anything even remotely close to a solution. Notably absent in that list of those sectors and segments of society, of humanity, is a very important segment of society, which is the people. In other words, all of humanity, regardless of whether you have a day job in one of the other aforementioned sectors, private sector, government, et cetera, you're still a person, right? And when have we even heard of the people coming together to address this crisis, the crisis of planetary overheating, being but one of the multiple crises within the polycrisis. I would argue, and do argue in the Google Docs that you'll get in the emails when you're on the email list. And so if you're not on my email list, please put your email in the chat and I'll be happy to add you. If you already have, I've already added you. In those Google Docs, which you can also lead to from Guy McPherson's 4-minute, 20-second video from a couple of weeks back. In those Google Docs, I go into a more detailed analysis of what I'm saying right here, right now. But the bottom line is, why not the people coming together? We're actually in a really interesting opportunity where the emperor, per the emperor's new clothes story, the emperor has just demonstrated and demonstrates every day, every week with more intensity just how naked she or he is. I think it's fair to say he. It's the patriarchal system here. It's not the matriarchy, it's the patriarchy. He is naked. The emperor is naked. And that actually presents an opportunity that we can now, take a break from the delusion that the emperor is fully clad, fully clothed, has this all figured out. And when I say the emperor, I'm talking about the elites in government, the elites in the private sector, the World Economic Forum, Davos, et cetera, et cetera. That's the emperor, that's the elites. The emperor is completely naked, completely incompetent, either incompetent or evil, as we talk about the two kind of bookend scenarios, or probably more likely some combination of the two. But nonetheless, what is stopping us, the people, from coming together? So I talked about those 800,000 constituting the 1% of 1% of us who get it, basically. We need to come together. How many of those 800,000 get that we need to come together and actually work on this together? And that forums such as a People's Forum for Cooling the Planet are perfectly good venues for doing that. So those of us who are here have really passed through those three major filters, and I congratulate each and every one of you for being here and being a part of this. Anyway, that's my opening statement. I've probably gone beyond 5 minutes, so thank you for your patience, and thank you for your applauses and smiles. That keeps me going. And with that, I'm going to pass the feather to Michael Prent, and feel free to raise your hand, especially if you haven't spoken yet, but no pressure. We'd love to hear from everyone, but again, no pressure, only if and when you're ready. And with that, I pass it to Michael. Go ahead, Michael. Michael, okay, right? You taking a pass there, Michael, because you're on mute. Okay, very good. All right, Michael's taking a pass. Shannon looks, and Susan have unmuted. Go ahead, Susan.
Jamin, the only thing I wanted to add was that Ralph Nader has for a very long time said it only takes 1% to actually affect change. You don't need to persuade an entire country, but 1% of the population of the US to actually go out and make real change. You made me think of that.
Yeah, my dad and I actually went to a talk that Ralph Nader gave in Berkeley some years ago, and he made exactly that point, and I was very impressed. So what I'm talking about is that we've got 1% of 1% being the people who actually get it, but I think that from this seed crystal, we can build towards 1% and then shoot past 1%, particularly as the obviousness of the crisis of planetary overheating grows. Anyway, now, and thank you. And did you have more to say, Susan?
No, I just wanted to share that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And I noticed my sister Shannon unmuted.
I did. I want to say thank you so much, Jamin and Marco and Stan and Michael and Christopher and all of you, because you are showing the way. And yes, it takes 1%. And what I really want to say is that it counts who is a part of that 1%. And people like Jamin and Marco, what you're doing is what needs to be done in order to spread that 1% and make it larger. And Stan, with your othernetworks.org, presenting the people who are like-minded. This is really important. And to have the conversations that help people get it is really important. And Stan, the after chat that you created strictly by acting from your impulse of curiosity. Who are all these people that keep talking? And I do urge each and every one of you, follow your curiosity, open your hearts, open your minds, open your mouths. These are important things that you know, and you know about, and you know who knows more about. And so I just want to say thank you so much for opening the conversation and leaving the lines open. I've been up at the lake with my mom for her 91st birthday. So I missed the after chat today, Stan. I'm sure it was a really interesting conversation. And it's going to be even better tomorrow. That's my stance on most everything. And so thank you for still being here after starting so much earlier, and so that I could drop in and say thank you so much for all that you do.
Beautiful. Well, I'd say at this point, let's just keep sharing. I certainly have more to share. I could screen share kind of some of the basics of exponential planetary overheating and the basics of the solutions. Christopher has his hand up. Christopher, my neighbor, just to the north of me in beautiful British Columbia. Go ahead, Christopher, take it away.
Well, thanks for everybody for being here today. This is really exciting that we're all on this page and trying to examine how to address the eco crisis in this way. I've got a background interest in environmentalism and philosophy myself. Was really lucky when I was a kid to travel with my military dad for first 20 years of my life and 10 years in Europe. Basically took a more reductionistic, materialistic approach to life until probably about 2015. Started a meditation practice, and kind of over a period of time blew the lid off of my older life and perception of reality, and all of this in a convoluted path led me here. My previous ideas about how we need to address the eco crisis have been really influenced or changed, I should say, by what I would call a woo factor approach, where I think and understand our reality to be influenced by the mind as opposed to material interactions. And I know that this isn't necessarily, I think that there's a tension right now in the discussion about this stuff because, we're allowed to talk about things such as telepathy and ET intervention and, dreams about the future and all of this type of stuff. It's allowed to be thought of in sort of a fanciful manner, but at the end of the day, we have to come back to the table where the grown-ups are. And the grown-ups are all talking in reductionistic, materialistic tones about reality. And that is the dominant worldview still, which I feel we're imprisoned within. How is this related to solving the eco crisis? Well, I do feel that if we aren't operating within our true power, which I understand to be beyond this 3D interaction that we see as reality, then we're not really using all the tools that we can, and we're still stuck in. I liken it to moving sand around the room. It's like we're not really making the true progress that we can. So I'd like to submit that part of the solution here, which I'm sure all of you already are on board with, but I just wanted to bring it up because this is a really huge interest of mine, and it's what brought me into contact with this group actually, is that branch of thought that we are more than just our bodies, that there's a lot more going on here than with the reductionistic materialistic worldview, which really has a lot in common with our problems with capitalism, incidentally, and all these other issues that we have. That view that we're more than that is I believe mission critical to what we're trying to do here. And I don't know how to weave that into the discussion because it's kind of verboten speak. We're not really, again, it's like you might scare away some people with that talk. It's not very accepted in a lot of ways that you do start talking about it, and it's not quite clear how it fits into these things. Whereas the boots on the ground approach to solving problems is how we traffic in solutions right now. That's what we've been given. But I would like to submit that the other side of it, which I know most of the people here we're on board with, it's just not clear how to language that and how to deal with it. That's one of my huge interest in how that interfaces with the eco crisis. And not to take up much more time, but it is because I think reductionistic materialism insists on an atomistic view of reality, whereas it's become increasingly clear to everyone waking up that we are all one, that everything is interconnected. And when there's a realization that we're interconnected, we cannot hurt the ecosystem the way we are, the way that capitalism in its current manifestation is. And this recognition of oneness outside is critical to solving the problem. But anyway, I really appreciate the ability to speak right now, and thank you everybody for being here.
Thank you, Christopher. Beautiful. So happy you're here. Christopher is another of the pillars of this space that we've built over the years. All right, up next we have Lena. Take it away, Lena.
Oh my gosh, so many stories come to my mind, stories about my mother, hiking trips, the jungle, but I just really want to say that what I have to bring into this is that the revolution, the evolution, parentheses are, that's kind of what I'm calling it for myself, which makes it a bit more palatable, right? Like, and soft. And that's kind of exactly what I wanted to talk about. Like, in order for us to really make change, I feel like we internally need to slow down in order to gain momentum outwardly. And that's kind of a secret. We need to start making calculated actions and asking the right questions, thinking more about the questions and what questions we're asking instead of, what the answers are, and that would kind of create a more sustainable language around the meta crisis and around everything that's going on, just asking the right questions or asking different questions, right? But yeah, this is all. Can we approach my question with that said is, can we approach these problems and this sense of urgency with a calm heart and a sense of awe and curiosity? Can we bring hope? Can we envision a better world, and through the dream world come together collectively? Because when we lack answers, when we lack the language, it all comes up in our dream worlds, and we are so deprived of just the ability to dream. Our dreams have been snatched away from us by these corporations and these people. So let's dream a better world, but let's root our dreams in reality. That's kind of, you know, like my little pump up message in this. We're not just coming up with solutions and answers, we're dreaming of a better world, right? So how are we envisioning this, and how can we, you know, for me, it's tapping back when I was 12 years old. My dad, who was a journalist, took me to Louisiana. We were looking around the different plantations, and I remember turning around, looking at a smokestack, and turning to my dad in horror and being like, "Dad, that's what needs to stop." And I broke down and started crying. And my dad went on to conquer Shell Oil, and he got 2 towns relocated. If anybody wants a link to that film, I will link it. And in the credit was, "This is for my daughter." So I'm lucky to have that, but everyone, what I would love everyone to do is remember that moment that brought you close to the earth, that first moment where you woke up, and that is where we need to be, you know, and that is what we need to remember, that first moment of shock, that first moment of fear, like, oh my God, that smoke, that intuition, right, where we just knew what was going on, and bring that forth in our work. So love you all, and let's continue this beautiful conversation with the intention to make a better freaking world, right? To heal the climate change, but we're also envisioning a better world and a better collective, not better, we're envisioning one that effing works, right? Better or worse, we need it to work. So how do we do that, guys? By loving and rooting in love. Thank you. All the rest, the mind and the, you know, that comes, but let's root it all in love. This conversation is sealed by the spirits and the gods. So let's move forward. Sorry, I'm a little like the fire within me. Love you all.
Beautiful, Lena. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, you've inspired me to raise my hand, but first let me welcome my queen, Melissa, protector of Mother Earth. Welcome, sweetheart. And what I wanted to add in terms of the dream. So as I write about in the Google Docs, which everyone will receive an email, but they're also linked to from Guy's first video on this topic, the People's Forum for Cooling the Planet, is that two things. Number one, cooling the planet, the crisis of exponential planetary overheating is but one of the crises in the polycrisis. I argue it is the most urgent and the obvious place to start. But beyond that, and beyond the crises, to Lena's point, this isn't just about solving crises, right? This is about dreaming into a better world, about transforming our world, transforming our species from Homo sapiens to Homo ahimsa is my big paradigm, becoming the loving caretaker species, loving and caring for each other and all life on Earth. And within all that context, that greater context, now I come back to a People's Forum for Cooling the Planet and that singular focus on cooling the planet. Again, I see the crisis of exponential planetary overheating as the biggest, most urgent crisis, because it alone can wipe out all of life on Earth if left unchecked. If we don't solve that, that is the crisis that is the main driver of many of the other crises, like the sixth mass extinction, destruction of the biosphere, food crisis, etc., even immigration, economic collapse. It's the main driver of all of those is exponential planetary overheating. So it's the most urgent, and it's also the simplest. It's about heat. Heat is, one side of a two-sided coin of the most elemental, fundamental matter in the material universe. Heat and matter, energy and matter. Einstein demonstrated they are one and the same, but two sides of a coin is how I like to look at it. It is so simple. And the way to cool the planet can be so simple and it can be done in a way that does not take anything away from any one person or any one country or any one, group or sector of society. Cooling the planet does nothing but add value to everyone and everything here on Earth. And so I just wanted to make those simple comments that in order to solve the poly crisis and then open up this space for opportunity for transformation, I'm proposing that we within People's Forum for Cooling the Planet, not that we can't talk about other things. Let's talk about whatever we want to talk to that's related. But the goal of PFCP is quite simply to cool the planet. It's a very simple goal, very tangible, very achievable, and it's the most urgent. And I think it can be a form of planetary training wheels for humanity to then say, wow, if we could solve that most urgent crisis, what else can we do? And so I think it'll be a huge self-confidence booster for our species. And with that, I pass the feather, and I see Michael has his hand up. And go for it, Michael.
I think it's
Testing 1, 2. Sorry about the delay.
Yeah, no, we can hear you, Michael.
I wondered if we might call geoengineering earth shielding, like earth shielding operations. That's one idea. But my 8% for the earth proposal, where we shift 8% of the defense budget to climate change solutions right away, that's $70 billion a year. We could give credits for white paint, and people can paint their roofs white and get some solar radiation management going on. And also we can buy up all the extra hemp seeds, and we can plant hemp as many places as possible and help the farmers to rotate the soil with hemp roots digging deep into the ground and also producing a lot of CO2 absorption. And that could be part of how we could shift the Department of Defense budget right away. Practical solutions that we can enact right away. Thank you.
Thanks, Michael. Yeah, good practical solutions there. And Aaron, go for it.
Okay, how about rebooting or rebootstrapping the Earth? What was this reference to Homo sec? You made, Jamin? You made a reference to the evolution of the human race to...
Oh, yeah, to Homo hemsa.
Hemsec. How do you spell that?
No, it's ahimsa. AHIMSA. And ahimsa, I understand, is a concept common to all of the main Indian religions of the Indian subcontinent, and that it basically at its essence is do no harm, and beyond that, be a caretaker species. So there is a book called by that title, Homo Ahimsa, by Susan, I think it's McCroy, something like that. and I've met her on a Zoom meeting precisely at a vegan convergence that BJ Rebecca was talking about earlier. And and I've really embraced that we are, you know, as this crisis, polycrisis comes to a head, I believe the biggest opportunity is for us to come together as a species, as a collective human intelligence. And in the process of coming together, we transform. I mean, just in the process of being in this meeting, I am transforming. I'm becoming more optimistic, more in love with humanity, because I see such fine specimens of humanity right here amongst us all. So I believe that in the process of coming together, we transform ourselves, and we transform each other. We collectively transform. And the ultimate extension of that is, or extrapolation of that is, that we transform as a species to something more like, I would say, an ant colony, right? So if you take a leafcutter ant colony in the Amazon, for instance, where there's 7 different castes, no single caste of those 7 castes can survive on its own. It's impossible. So the whole ant colony works as, pardon the analogy, an integrated machine, right? Where each one does their parts. If humanity were to come together and work as a single integrated, like an ant colony, working together, cooperating, caring for each other, caring for the planet, my goodness, what a beautiful world it would be. So that's a vision that really helps carry me through these hard times. And I know you've got more to say, Aaron, so passing the feather back to you.
Yes, I coming back to language, I think, and terminology and the emotions attached to certain sets of different subsets of language, to different subsets or cohorts of society. I'm finding that you have to use or set out your terms to people, otherwise it goes straight past them. Or you have to use their language and then add to it and extend their vocabulary to add terms and concepts so that they can make this conceptual leap across the conceptual hiatus, across this vast chasm of information impedance that exists between different parts of society in different countries, different nationalities, etc. I found NLP to be a very useful tool. You can listen to someone and you can see how their brain, whether they're a language person or a visual person or a synekinetic person. I see what you mean. I hear what you mean. I feel that. Are all different. We're all different amounts of these different things, but generally people tend to be biased towards to be able to be communicated in one of those. It goes into their emotional circuitry easier if you use sets of language terms around their way of seeing the world. So I think we need to have what I term a hydra, where each of the tentacles speaks a different language and way of communicating, so that when people come across documentation from us, they read it and they all tend to, most people don't read the whole of the document. They will read the bits that they'll start reading it and they will stop at a certain point of their conceptual or comprehensional abilities to understand that. Now, what you need is keys in that document that lead people, almost like maybe even using hypertext, that people go to gravitate towards what they understand, and it takes them towards that way of their understanding what's being purveyed, so that we can say the same message in lots of different ways for different people, so that, and if we bring people into this group who have different ways of understanding and seeing and using different language to describe everything, if we get those people to describe it from their terms, and we bring that into our documentation base, and we gradually compile this Babel's Tower Hydra of a way of people keying in. Now, when you communicate to someone, if you give them keys, then they don't understand those keys, then they'll just leave it. But if they find the keys and to something that they understand, like I'm explaining to someone in Scotland who's saying that Scotland used to have vineyards in the medieval warm period. I explain, and they're saying, oh, it's good that climate change is coming, it's going to get warmer. And I then explain, but that is melting Greenland, and Greenland is then just diluting the ocean conveyor, which is going to decrease the amount of temperature getting to England, and England is going to drop between 6 to 8 degrees centigrade, including a large amount of Europe even more, because there's not this warm current. So you talk to them in that, and give them that argument. So it's a matter of weaving stories from people's existing stories and ways of conceiving and understanding things. And I think that's the only way we can communicate.
Beautiful. Thank you, Aaron. In fact, Mark. Yeah, thank you. In fact, Mark McCormick is not here at the. Oh, he is here. He's off camera. But anyway, Mark, with his universal logic derived from Hegelian logic, has really, I think it's fair to say, has achieved some degree of mastery around, bridging gaps, chasms or divides. You called it the climate hiatus, the information impedance. Anyway, he has been working on a really fascinating methodology. I don't understand it completely, but I've been exposed to it, and I've felt its power when we've used it in meetings. And there are others who are working on other, kind of, I'll just say, methodologies for communication and bridging gaps, et cetera. So I think there's tremendous potential there. I would put that in the realm of collective human intelligence, right? Which I see as a grand meta solution in the computer science sense. As I use the goose that lays the golden eggs. If you want golden eggs, get a goose, right? Get that which generates the golden egg. So I see collective human intelligence as that which generates solutions, including other meta solutions, for getting humanity together and helping humanity achieve understanding, which is a meta solution towards actually getting to actual solutions, because you need people to understand that there's a problem to get them to buy into a solution or a set of solutions. So that's my quick reply there. And I see Mark has unmuted his mic, but I think Jackie had her hand up first, if I'm not mistaken, but then I saw it get taken down. Okay. Anyway, Mark, if you want to go ahead, go for it.
Yeah, thanks for mentioning what we're trying to do here. Yeah, I think we're narrowing in on creating a global movement very quickly. And one of the most shocking things we've discovered that's really uncomfortable at first, especially for scientists, is that 85% of the world is in religious consciousness. And the concerning thing about the climate crisis is that I took a course recently that showed the only groups that are not scared by death of climate crisis are religious groups. So if we don't find a way to not only communicate, but communicate in a way that is religiously adequate to 85% of humanity, we won't have a global movement, no matter what we do. And you can't use doom and gloom, it seems like, to motivate them to do anything, particularly Christians, apparently. So in terms of this collective human superintelligence, I don't think we're going to be able to move anybody unless we claim to be the Word of God. I think we're in such an extreme situation that unless you can be on the same level as the authorities, which are causing people to do nothing, wait for revelation to come and a second coming and wipe everybody out, unless we're at that level, I don't think we're going to be able to move potentially billions of people. And only 15% of the world's population is secular or non-religious, and that's not enough to move us all. So I think one of the most shocking things that we've discovered is not only have we learned to communicate in a meta consistent way, but I think we found something called supercoherence, where we've upgraded this language game to a divine level that is simultaneously scientific, so we can resolve these contradictions that are ripping our species apart. So there's roughly 200 contradictions in our language that make these types of groups impossible to scale, because even if you can get a little organic unity coming together based on their mutual fear of death because of climate change, as you get bigger, more and more and more of these different cultures come in that have these contradictions in them, that if you don't know how to sublate them or integrate them, it radiates off the momentum of your movement. So even if you start with critical mass potential and clear communication within a relatively coherent group of individuals who have natural alignment in their values, as you scale that up, you lose your momentum and then eventually turn into infighting that we currently see. So I really think it really comes down to the power of the word. So we found a way to communicate the power of this word in artistic form, religious form, across all the religions, the same logic, in abstract scientific forms, abstract philosophical forms, and in the pure form of just pure meta coherence, in a way where we can define our words and create an agreement structure that can be proven for once in capital T truth and also small t empirical truth. We have found the nature of nature, how nature evolves is the same as divine law we found. And so far it's working pretty well. So we basically have to declare ourselves not just luminaries or maestros of change or as sages. We have to basically declare ourselves as messiahs, magi, whatever religion needs to see as a divine authority upon the earth, and say, here are some very practical solutions in terms of growing our food sustainably, having grow-ups, being able to scale that up at cost, and then having this language game at a divine level saying, what do the words mean that we use, particularly spiritual words, redefine the way we look at holy text to say, no, the point is not to die and go to kingdom come somewhere beyond. The point is to bring kingdom come here. And I just met a guy, an Ashkenazi Jew, just yesterday, who's a savant, he's a genius guy, he's a clinical psychologist, all these types of cool things. And he found a way to restructure Revelation in a way where it's not supposed to be this doom and gloom. It's supposed to motivate Christians to actually act here now and to not wait for the climate disaster to fulfill the second coming or something. So we have to spread this new spirit. So that's the most controversial thing I'll say. I think without that, it'll be very, very hard to do better than what the United Nations is already doing, where I'm already in communication with people working on these language games at the international level. And they're incredibly frustrated because even in the interfaith, where they're supposed to come together in love and all, they're not working together either in a serious way. And so we don't have a true interfaith. We have a multi-faith that's fighting with itself or fighting with each other. So that right there, that's 85% of humanity, and they're not afraid by death. So I think we've solved that problem. And I think we can start a new world government system in Jerusalem, at the University of Jerusalem, that can start solving the wars as we're spreading awareness about how to get food to Palestine, how to do these very sustainable and very cheap grow-ops, these earth power lodges, that'll solve a lot of the community building problems. And I think what we've done in these 230 meetings is we figured out how to, no matter who you are, we figured out a 10-step, like we have 10 meetings to get you from the dead culture of destroying the earth, out of control your impulses, all these types of things, into a healing process that in 10 meetings you go from the dead system of spirit to a new governance system across all 11 of your life areas, heal all the trauma, clarify your words, clarify your ideology, and bring people into that super coherence. And so I feel like these are called ever living meetings, by the way, and we've structured them in a way that's just where everybody gets the same amount of sharing time based on these timers, and restructuring the economy that way. So that's a very short snippet of what I think it's really going to realistically take.
Could you say the last bit again? Sorry, the very last bit, a couple of sentences.
That we have to do a lot, and this is the simplest way, I think, to create basically a new world government, a new world spirit, a new culture, all at the same time in a gestalt. We have to work in parallel. We have to have 64 wisdom teams working in parallel, but in coherence with that same logic. And if we do it, we can get an emergent effect that's exponential. And everybody that comes in here will belong, whether you're capitalist, communist, socialist, whether you're male, female, LGBTQ, whether you're artistic, religious, or scientific, whether you believe in being, nothing, or becoming, it doesn't matter. There's 200 contradictions that when somebody comes in here, we can make them feel like they belong, whereas no other group on earth can do that, not even at the United Nations level. So I feel like, there's a lot more details to get into, but there's around 64 wisdom teams that have a realistic shot at solving the unsolvable because of this universal logic and unleashing collective human superintelligence. So if you're serious, if you want to be serious, this is what we found has been working. And I could spend another 10 hours talking about it, but I want to start unpacking an actual realistic strategy. And this is an option if you're interested. So thanks again for mentioning it, Jamin. And if you want to get practical, I can explain more of like how Earth Marine Cloud Brightening fits into it. And we have a domino effect, the domino strategy to kind of like scale up the critical mass. But I'm not sure how people feel about that. It's pretty controversial, but thank you. And Stan, we're supposed to talk too about that with Eleanor Ostrom.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Yeah, Stan is another who's been, is he still here at the moment? Yeah, he's here. Who's been working on, amazing stuff in the realm of communication. So has Aaron. So many of us here have really brought some beautiful gifts to the table and are developing our gifts. I mean, right here, this very Zoom space that we've created, one of its reflections is theconversation.cc, is an ongoing effort at evolving collective human intelligence through conversation, through synchronous conversation. And Aaron and many of us had a good conversation last week about asynchronous conversation through Usenet, et cetera, which I've found very enriching at different times in life. So I think that there's this really emergent tapestry of different forms of communication and collective sense-making, et cetera, that is evolving quite rapidly these days, I would say, and supported by technology. And sometimes the technology is not necessarily our friend. I think Facebook has made us in many ways more stupid, different forms of social media. And so I actually stay off of Facebook. But anyway, I'm just blurting out some off the cuff response.
I've been banned. They banned me for speaking the truth about Palestine, basically.
Wow. Well, for me, being banned from Facebook is a badge of courage. So thank you for speaking out. I've been immensely frustrated by censorship. I've been censored, et cetera. Anyway, Marco's up next, followed by Michael. Go ahead, Marco.
Yeah, I want to say obviously because I'm here and I've been here in this space alone for 4 years, never mind the years before, working to make right what we've done wrong with the earth. I want to address Mark. I have this thing, this pet peeve of mine where people want to play devil's advocate. And I always say, why on earth would you want to be the advocate of evil? So in this case, I'm going to play God's advocate in an ironic way. And I'm going to say, and I have this rule I learned, people develop these, like, this is my rules of surviving in the world. And my first most important one was to never say never. Never be so arrogant that you believe you know for sure what is, because something happened to me at that, like when I was around 13, that I knew everything was black and white. I knew there was good, there was evil, there was bad and good, and I knew what those were, and then I got this little bit of information about one thing, and it totally flipped the script for me. I was like, how could I have been so wrong? Because I was only missing this tiny bit of information. And that led me to never say never, because I can never be sure that I'm absolutely right. And creation is infinite and ever growing, and that leaves us so much space to be wrong and to learn. So in God's advocate to your position of it's like, what if all the religious people are right and it really doesn't matter? And we're just all doing what we're doing here for our own ego or whatever reason, we think we're right, but what if they're right? And I just say that mostly ironically, just to have us all think and be, never be so confident that we're not open to being wrong and that there's a better answer out there. Not saying that I have the better answer, or anyone here or you have a wrong answer. Just, we need to keep that possibility that we'll learn something more and be, have something revealed to us that we just were missing. So just a little bit of my philosophy being, waxing philosophic. And with that, I pass the feather.
Thank you, Marco. And I see Michael and Aaron have their hands raised. And before I call on Michael, and if you want to work on your unmuting, Michael, in the meantime, but first I want to welcome my friend and neighbor, John Hogue, who just joined the meeting. And some of you will remember, from time to time, I go out on my balcony and I say, "Hey, John, what's up? Sending you love, brother," in a meeting. That's John. So, John, we look forward to hearing from you. We've been at it for a couple hours now, and feel free to jump in anytime. Feel free to raise your hand to get in the queue.
Yeah.
We got Michael, followed by Aaron.
Yeah, welcome, John. Any friend of Jamin's is a friend of ours. Thank you for being here. Just on a practical note, for people who wanted a copy of the book From Angels of Zanzibar, I'll be sending those out on or around July 17th. But in the meantime, I did send by email a copy of Frequency and Color, an unpublished book, quite a bit about color and frequency. If anybody wants a copy, just drop your email address in the chat box and I'll send one right away. Thank you all.
Okay, sure. And just one quick administrative thing. I see John says can't open the mic or video, and I don't know why that is. To unmute the mic, you just you look in the bottom left of your screen. On the bottom, there's all kinds of icons with all kinds of functionality. The far lower left, you'll find a microphone and video next to it that you can unmute or turn on, as it were. So best wishes with that, and I can help you in person on that if you need to at some point later, other than later beyond today. Anyway, with that, I pass it to Aaron. Take it away, Aaron. Oh, you're on mute there, Aaron. You're muted.
Coming back to language and systems, logic and systems. Kurt, I don't know if anyone knows of Kurt Gödel. He is a mathematician, had a very unfortunate life, but came up with something called the incompleteness theorem. any axiomatic system is either incomplete.
Oh, Aaron, so sorry to interrupt, but your microphone is doing its thing again, and but we can pretty much hear what you were saying, but just you know.
Is that again? Yeah.
It's still a bit garbled there, Aaron.
Oh dear. Any to know?
Better. Thank you, Aaron.
Right. Okay. Kurt Gödel wrote a paper quite soon after. Sorry about this. I'm forgetting people's names. Anyway, wrote this paper soon after Principia Mathematica, which basically.
I'm so sorry, Aaron. Your microphone's still doing its thing.
Okay, I'll back down. That's what I speak.
Yeah, whatever you were doing last week seemed to really do the trick. And so I might offer, if there's some kind of different base that you could put it on to either absorb the vibrations or dampen them.
Or we could all just learn to understand him in his language. Maybe that's where all the answers are.
Wow.
In this garbled state. Is that any better?
Much
Maybe-
better, Aaron. Much better.
Maybe
Thank
that
you.
garbled
Right.
state is actually the earth like speaking through you, and we need to just
Modulating.
modulating.
Yes.
God. Anyway, sorry.
Okay, so we have this paper that proved that any axiomatic system that's like arithmetic or logic is either incomplete or it's inconsistent. So this can be taken on a higher level to any construction that's constructed axiomatically. Any set of rules or any rule system is either going to be incomplete, i.e. it doesn't describe the whole thing, the whole of what it's really describing in reality, or it's inconsistent. There's contradictions within the system. This is going back to what Mark was saying about there being 200 contradictions within the system. Now, human language allows you to step above this. We're in a stochastic domain. We're in a chaotic domain rather than a logical domain, but we're still approximating. Anything we say approximates that a formal system. There's informal systems and formal systems. And as we bed down knowledge, it comes from an informal system into a formal system. Philosophy, originally everything was, science was philosophy. Science and mathematics were both born out of philosophy. And if you go to Wikipedia and you follow the categories and you keep on following what category something's in and carry on like that, you'll eventually come back to philosophy or anything. So everything is based upon natural philosophy. Logic was born from that, by Aristotle to modern mathematicians like Frege, who basically systemized in sets of symbols how to describe logic. So as everything became more formalized, suddenly along came Principia Mathematica in around 1905 by Bertrand Russell and Alfred Whitehead. And they wanted to basically formalize mathematics in a set of rules that describes all of mathematics. And also Hilbert produced a program, not a computer program, but a series of steps to try and axiomatize the whole of mathematics and logic. And then Kurt Gödel, who I described, said that's impossible. Well, he produced an argument that says that's impossible. And it really comes down to, eventually down to the statement, this statement is false. That runs all the way through mathematics. If you look at mathematics, it's sets of stages of systems, each dealing with problems or holes in the previous stage. Complex numbers like the square root of -1 suddenly opens up the complex domain. You have a whole other dimension in mathematics that then allows you to describe electromagnetics and things like that. So there's any system that you create, you will find that there will be holes in it, and you've got to create another system to subsume that system and patch those holes. And evolution goes on like that. It's through all systems work like that. Is each stage patches the holes and fixes up the holes of the last stage. Computer systems are like that. Computer languages are like that. Everything, also all our attempts to formalize and come up with this ultimate unified solution break down at some stage when they deal with new realities. And humanity has now come across this massive thing that only a few people have seen. The mathematicians, the scientists have seen, and they're the only people, and the environmentalists and people have seen it. The earth people saw it earlier spiritually. And these holes in our system, our runaway system that's got a momentum, that is, we somehow have to stop that momentum from going over the cliff. We have got to show those holes. We've got to produce a better, we've got to subsume, to replace any system. The only way you're going to do it, you can't get some people to suddenly change. You have to give something better. You have to replace and give people an alternative. You have to give people a way out of their little world view that allows them to save face. Because mathematicians come along with this amazing bit of mathematics, and then another mathematician says, no, that's all wrong because it doesn't actually fit in reality. And all through science, you get people writing scientific papers, and they do their PhDs, and you find you can't get hold of PhDs very easily. Why? Because a lot of them have actually got holes in them. And people have found, and that the whole of the history of type theory and mathematics going back to Bertrand Russell is like that. So we need to look at things from a systems point of view, and allow people to adapt and give people the ability to adapt and change and save face on their prior views. I don't know. I think that's a bit of a wild philosophical talk there, but yeah, I'll hand the feather.
Wow. Really good stuff. I'm reminded of a thesis about the non-existence of a single universal taxonomy. As you'll recall from last week, I'm big on taxonomies. And I'm aware that there was an effort many years ago to put together the ultimate universal taxonomy, and it failed. And then my understanding is that the philosopher Derrida proved that in a philosophical context, that there could not be a single, universal taxonomy, which basically, if there did exist a single universal taxonomy, that would be sort of the skeletal framework for a universal truth. So what I'm hearing from all this is that perhaps such a thing simply cannot exist, or maybe we just haven't evolved yet to the point that we can see it. I don't know which. Dogs are colorblind, therefore they can't see color, but color certainly does exist. So maybe the dogs just need to evolve. Maybe we need to give them more nutritionally enhanced dog treats or something. But anyway, I'm sorry. I'm trying to inject a little bit of humor into some very serious stuff. And I'm sure John Hogue can shed some light. And in the meantime, Jackie.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you just fine, John.
Okay, good. Welcome, everybody. It's nice to meet you all, scattered all over the planet. You know, the path of wrong is part of evolution, perhaps. Perhaps define that all-encompassing theory is impossible because the existence is perfectly imperfect. It's the Persian rug with the flaw. It always has to be. So, but then again, perhaps there's something that perceives change. Is that thing a thing that is affected by change? Is it possible that there is a deeper understanding that plays with theories, plays with taxonomy, plays with constant change and all of that? And its play is to, I'm right, you're wrong. I'm wrong, you're right. It's part of the great Leela, the great play of, put it this way, the waves will always debate what is the perfect waving. And in so doing, in such concentration to the form of the wave, they forget they are the ocean. My interest is to be a witness of that. And that comes from, I suppose, my path, which led me to India, which led me to become a disciple of Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh, currently called Osho. And I was his, for a time, his night watchman in his place, and many things happened. Many things were discovered that don't happen, and happening happens around that. Like the wheel of samsara spins and spins and spins around an axle that is so free and conscious that it does not exist. Therefore, it does not exist.
So which is it, John? Does it exist or not? I'm just kidding. Anyway, no, good.
Both, neither.
Yeah, neither, both. Mhm.
No, beautiful. All right, we got some hands up. Jackie, followed by Mark, followed by Lena. Take it away, Jackie.
I do this. I come on here every day. I'm on up to 6 times a day with different groups. And I think what we have to remember is truth and dream. That's what we heard about today. Truth and dream.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you, Jackie. All right, Mark is up next, followed by Lena.
Jay, this. Okay, guys, I'm trying to bring Jay Marin in here because he's a physics savant from Caltech. It's amazing, and this discussion about metaphysics and math is his forte. So I think you'll understand why this discussion is the beginning answer, and why Aaron. I didn't see your comment yet, but Lena, I looked at the slides you posted very quickly, and they're kind of perfect to make this point about a universal taxonomy. Can we get that link of the chat, like the link to this group in the chat here? I'll just copy and paste it quickly. Some of my emails. But there is what I've discovered that's shocking here is that there actually is a universal taxonomy and a structure that is not axiomatic in the dead way. So in the slides there, it shows that there's a problem with the abstract method, and the abstract method is that it creates little pockets of structure that are themselves not justified. Like you can't get out of the system of symbols. Oh, is that not what it was supposed to be, Lena?
I mean, go on. It's that what I posted is an oversimplification of a very intense. It was for the mathematicians that might know him. I just plug that. So but go on. I'm not gonna interrupt. Sorry.
Okay, that's okay. I thought while you were chatting, I could probably get Jay in here to listen to this because it's perfect. So I'm very excited because this is actually what I found is the problem. Even when I was like running this other organization, it really comes down to language and organizing information in a way that we can see each other, because the brain freaks out when it doesn't recognize the other. When it doesn't recognize the other, cortisol, fight or flight, all these problems come and it rips us apart. And that usually happens when our ideologies enter into contradiction, because that's the thing that we can't seem to resolve, the othering. It's persistent othering. And it ends up in paradox, which is why it's really important that Osho was mentioned, because it seems like his psychology, or the way his mind worked, broke free of that paradoxical nature and resolved it into coherence. And this is what Hegel has also done. And I secretly suspect that Osho, as a philosophy major, when I looked into his history, I believe that he read Hegel and Meister Eckhart and broke through and just didn't tell anybody. That's an assumption, but even if it's not true, it doesn't matter. It's the same taxonomy.
It is true. He did read them and all the philosophers.
Yeah. So I feel like his mind was powerful enough that I think he broke through like I did. And it is, Hegel's right, it is divine consciousness because it self-justifies itself, not in an axiomatic assertion, but as a proof within the system itself. Like, we're external to the system, we're external to the taxonomy because we have external consciousness. So we're operating in contingency. So the trick to getting back into the true system, into the true taxonomy, is not by making any affirmative claims. It's by doing this negative self-reflexivity, which is what the guy who just spoke, what was his name here? Osho's Nightkeeper, just said. It does not.
John Hogue, he's on screen here. Yeah.
Also known as, my Sanskrit name is Arjuna.
Arjuna. Okay, Arjuna. Yeah, does not exist. That's a double negative. All truth kind of works that way, where the only immanent principle, the only true principle, is the abstraction itself as the negation. But when you apply the principle to its own self in a self-reflexivity, it generates an affirmative. But it's an affirmative that includes its opposite. So this is the way you go from continuing consciousness into immanent truth without having to assert any affirmatives of the system. It's just through negation of the dead system that you enter the living system, and then it immanently rebuilds itself into the true taxonomy of all the conditions of true cognition needed to recognize yourself, your ideal self, and all other finite objects in nature and also within your inner world. And you can do that with other people through the definitions of what we call words, but these are absolute definitions because they follow the structure. When you speak with these definitions, when you string grammar together in this way, that's the power of the word that Jesus and Buddha and all these guys in Osho were using. That's almost like a poetry. It has a syllogistic rotation that keeps the words in super coherence, and also solves Gödel's incompleteness theorem, Aaron. Hegel solved it because there's a completeness theorem that he didn't get to that incorporates the incompleteness theorem. All he proved was that contingent thoughts don't have to be proven. So he just proved the truth of that moment, but there's a moment that transcends that, and that sort of negation of negation. And I feel like that's where you end up in this non-dual thought that includes the endlessness of finite existence. And that's what true non-duality is supposed to be. Otherwise, you end up in duality by resisting duality. So this is where I feel like if our language isn't structured in this way, we can't actually get into this immanent universal taxonomy that can be an agreement structure that will allow us to cooperate and trust each other. And there's roughly 200 contradictions like that, 200 dualities that are not currently in their non-dual integration, not that organic living whole. Like, thoughts are living, they're supposed to mimic nature, or nature is supposed to mimic true life. And I feel like everything you said, Aaron, is solved. And Jamin, this universal taxonomy does exist, and it's mapped out in 200 universals in order, the divine order. And I think this is what Osho was doing too. They all make sense now. And last point here is, this is very powerful, you guys. This is the problem, because meetings, people come in and out of meetings. If you can't have a stable meeting, people won't stay. So if I came in and say, hey guys, I'm God, I'm the absolute truth, how many people are going to stay through that? Not very many. But that's actually the truth. Once you understand the divine taxonomy, you start talking like Osho, and it starts to glorify you. And so we have to basically come in with that authority, but you have to be able to prove truth. You can't just assert it. It's not a faith. we've upgraded faith to certainty in a scientific way where we can prove it to anyone. Anybody can grasp it because it's not complicated. It's actually so simple, the ego blasts by it. That's why it can't get it. So I feel like this is
Do you have writings on this? Do you
what's
have
that?
writings on this on do you have writings on this on the internet by any chance?
Yeah, I just started teaching it this morning, but I have a talk. I can send you a couple of talks, Aaron. I sent you an email, but you didn't respond for some reason. I think I might have typed the wrong email. But if you got my email in the chat, just email me and I'll email you two papers I just wrote and submitted to a journal. And I made one talk for UNESCO World Logic Week at the University of Calgary, where I explained the proof of truth in modern terms, and then showed how we can use this in art, religion, abstract science, and abstract philosophy. So yeah, and Aristotle was doing it too. It's just that Hegel understood Aristotle in the right way. So yeah, this is very controversial, but I think it's probably the only thing powerful enough to really keep the team together. But now I'm very curious what you're going to say, Lena. and yeah, please email me, Aaron. I'll put my email in the chat one more time. And Jay,
I've just found the email. Sorry, I've been a bit untogether at over the last week or so. Too many different influences and too much work to do.
Okay. I put in there if anybody else wants to go through, but yeah, Whitehead, all of them, they all make sense now, Aaron. When I studied them now through this divine cognition, they all make sense. Whitehead is in the negative process moment. That's the negative moment. He hasn't grasped the affirmative, where everything is eternally at rest in itself and eternally becoming. Those are both happening simultaneously, and what's called speculative thinking, or that non-duality. And we can make a logic, we can program an AI to do this too, to also say, like, protect us from contingent AIs that might want to miscategorize us or categorize us in this contingent scattered way, which is how we're currently operating, which is why we have linear logic that's broken the circle of life, and why we're spreading like a virus out of balance on the planet. So anyway, I really said a lot there. I'm just very curious what other people think.
Thank you, Mark. And Lena's got her hand up. And by the way, John, do you know how to raise your hand on Zoom? Okay, good. Well, anyway, I mean the electronic form. Anyway, it's at the bottom lower right on your toolbar should be. But anyway,
oh, there it is.
There you go.
Right.
Okay, Lena, go for it. Followed by John.
I just wanted to tell you that I'm really humbled, John, like your experience, and just, yeah, I'm just in awe. And that was the first thing I wanted to say. To be in the presence of Osho, I couldn't even grasp, and to have had the experience and the humanity, you know, I think that's a huge part of what's lacking in these conversations. So just wanted to honor you. And yeah, I don't know you, but we're all connected in spirit. And yeah, earlier actually, it was funny that you said that, because within the context of the meta crisis, I always like to think about the self that's observing the meta crisis. What is the self outside of like myself, like, right? And that creates this beautiful inquiry into the past and the future, and how the past and the future are linked, and how it creates right now. And that's one of the most unbelievable truths, is that we're right here, right now. To me, it's that simple. To me, it's that simple, that I am right here, right now, and I am a self outside of this body observing. I studied Renaissance studies in school, and I bear witness, and that is my role, and that is my purpose. I bear witness, and through bearing witness, I create containers, and, you know, and yeah, everything else is just filler. That's how I see it. Everything else is just filler. Juicy filler, but meaning all of these philosophies and ideology, we have to remember that there was a world before philosophy there, and that's where I want to be. That's where I want to lie in the meetings. I want to look in every box and see a human being that is bringing something forward. Jamin's an amazing engineer. John, you have this infinite spiritual knowledge. Aaron, programming. Christopher, I don't know you that well, but Stanley has his networks, right? And what I'm always doing in my mind is, how can we connect John's spiritual to Stanley's to Mark's, right? And how do we make those vital connections? And what is our networkology? What is our little circle where our strengths and weaknesses, right? And through that alone, but the way I'm able to do that is by seeing the self that observes the self. So yeah. Thanks. I don't have any big epiphanies because honestly, sometimes I don't think they're as important as the philosophy is. I choose to see the humanity.
Thank
I
you, Leah.
studied a lot of philosophy. I just wanted to bring humanity.
Well, you know, Osho was a professor of philosophy in Jabalpur University, right in the center of India. And he studied everybody. He actually read 250,000 books in his life. He could just look at the page and he'd go through 70 books a week until his eyes got tired. And then he started watching all the videos and he said, I know about the West. I have read all of your thinkers. And he really had. And he wrote he did spontaneous discourses that were almost perfectly coming out as chapters for what ended up being in Hindi and mostly in English, 700 books. And he is the only enlightened master so far that has looked at every way to search for this 10,000 times this. And my prefix he gave at my name is Dhyan Arjuna. So Dhyan is in Sanskrit very misinterpreted in English, which is very poor in the concept of meditation. It's called contemplation. It's like people seeking no mindfulness. Well, they're seeking mindfulness, actually. And the problem is so many people come when I do readings on Zoom and they say, well, I did mindfulness, but I tried so hard to stop my mind from thinking. And I just didn't succeed. And I said, well, that's because meditation is an art of non-effort. And it is so ubiquitously our nature that, and so simple and so innocent, that all of our seeking for thousands of lives is always a step away, because you cannot become what you already are. You are the Buddha. You just don't, you have just been taught to look for it. Look for who you already are. You cannot be otherwise Buddha nature. Now, meditation in a true sense, I mean, the evolution of dhyana in Sanskrit became in Pali jhana that Buddha used in his sermons. It then with Bodhidharma went to China and became Chuan. And then it went to Japan and became Zen. And Osho's last discourses for 18 months were only about Zen. He figured that was the closest that the dialectical world can hint something that the part can never know as the whole.
Exactly.
And so he had this beautiful metaphor about prophecy, about witnessing, which is what meditation really means, without for or against. He said, Consciousness is like a mirror. It reflects perfectly what's before it with no judgment for or against. So this quality of simply witnessing a thing as it is, as it goes, whether it's some issue in your mind, body, emotional person or not, is basically what it is. It's like a person sitting on a busy roadside, just looking forward. Big car comes, ugly truck comes, a car that he always desired came, this, that. But after a while, one becomes more aware of the gaps between the traffic of the mind. And then what happens is the inescapable, Osho used to call it in his discourse on Ta Hui, the great Zen master, who actually, he used it because this great Zen master of China was acknowledged as a great master, but he wasn't. He was a Buddha pretending not to be, like all of us, but he was a Buddha pretending to be a Buddha. And then in the discourse, you can watch how his language changes. That way language can change when there's a centered beingness waiting for it to express through someone.
Exactly.
And so in the end, he became enlightened, was a great Zen master. So it's unique because so many of us are in this situation. And the thing is, so meditation is a subjective science. It's the missing science that the phenomenal science needs, like a bird needs two wings. And it needs it because if the scientist doesn't know him or herself, then nuclear power can be invented, and there's no wisdom to keep it from becoming nuclear bombs. Artificial intelligence is understood by a wisdom of witnessing to be artificial idiocy. How can these people put artificial and intelligence together? It's an oxymoron. And because it's the reason is that many of the people who are doing that are doing this because they believe that they're wise and intelligent, that intellect is intelligence. No, it isn't. If intellect was intelligence, then why did Napoleon Bonaparte invade Russia with an IQ of 142 and be utterly destroyed? So it's functional to intelligence, but it's not intelligence. And so what it is a lot of people are taking ego and amplifying it into some Frankenstein monster ego, and it will have the same fate that Dr. Frankenstein experienced in Shelley's book. And so it is, so we are not aware of the knower. And if that is not happening, this human race will not survive AI. So the thing that really helped as a hypothesis is it's beyond trying to believe or disbelieve something. It's simply to say this, okay. Osho used to say this all the time when we're in front of him. He'd say, well, what do you see when you see all of us assembled before you? And he'd grin and he'd say, I see that you're great. And everybody laughed. And he'd say, I see that you're all Buddhas. And we go, what? And he's smiling, pretending not to be. So that whole idea, we're all coming, one hypothesis is we're all come in as Buddhas. And then the society doesn't know what that is because it's innocence. It's a brilliant innocence. And rather than do what education means, draw it out, we cover it with persona, personality, ego. And it's well meant, but unconscious. So everybody who's born is an opportunity for the world to see another Buddha and to learn from it. If we would simply, with the teaching of the dialectical world, don't suppress, but draw out the Buddha. So as a thread 24/7, waking, sleeping throughout the person's life. And then you will have more gardeners of consciousness on this earth. And so I suddenly realized, well, okay, it's not about all these years, all these lives looking for Buddha. I'm going to just take the hypothesis. I am already a Buddha. So then the context changes of the issue. The issue is the pretending not to be. And that's what needs to be witnessed. The pretending not to be, and you go on thinking and philosophizing and living your life as before, but there's a witness, like a mirror reflecting your movie through this. And when there comes a moment when there's nothing passing before the mirror, Osho would hint, then the mirror reflects its vast, open, sky-like emptiness. That it reflects its own emptiness. And that's the moment of the consciousness completing its cycle in life. And I just stop with this one story. I tend to talk without knowing what I'm going to say next, and that's how it works for me. Yes. and so Buddha, Osho used to tell great stories from enlightened people as an enlightened person, would give them an interesting take that you don't see in the scriptures. And one of the things he said, there was a story where Buddha had a disciple. He said, I want you to go and do Vipassana and go over your tree and do that. And when you're done, I'll be waiting at the end of the day, and you come and explain to me what happened. And so he comes back. He says, well, Lord Buddha, I had this beautiful feeling of soaring and floating above in an infinite sky-like state, very blissful, nothing was wrong. And I was floating over a vast, looking at the upside of an overcast of clouds. And Buddha went, okay, go back tomorrow, and this time allow yourself to sink into those clouds. You're avoiding things. Don't believe me or disbelieve me, just see. Just see if you are actually avoiding what's underneath those clouds. And so he did it, and he went off, and then the next day, this time he's almost crawling back to Buddha. And he says, and Buddha says, so what happened this time? He said, Lord Buddha, I went down under the clouds, and nothing there was other than darkness, violence, insanity. My own insanity and stuff was early on, and then it became it wasn't even what I knew to be myself. It was just this vast, endless black hole of unconsciousness. How does something so vast and terrible ever become being? And Buddha said, unconsciousness has no beginning, but it has an end. And then he said, consciousness has a beginning. It has no end.
Thank you, John. I I look forward to meeting you in person when I'm out to visit Jamin.
I'm just up the street, just a half a block away.
Wow. John, did you ever run into the name Paul Brunton?
He's the Gurdjieff disciple.
Yeah, and
Yes.
Paul Brunton, and so it's just curious because Avery Solomon, who's we were all students of Paul Brunton, and they spoke of Osho, but my friend Avery was the math and physics, so the Dalai Lama is actually well versed in math and physics as well as philosophy. He had a series of tutors and teachers from all over, and yeah, I love, oh my gosh, the idea of contemplation, meditation, and prayer as a trinity has become my godsend. It's one of the most powerful and healing tools that we can use. And I learned that from my studies, from my personal experience, but also from my great teachers, so, which I have had many, so, including Osho. So it's pretty amazing to be virtually in the presence of someone who has been in the presence of Osho as well. So
Something I need to say about that as someone who, and we are a dwindling species, those who physically walked and related to Osho. From my experience of being with Osho, one of the subtlest things that can get in the way is the personal relationship.
True.
And there's a lot of sannyasins that were much closer to Osho than I was physically, interacting as in his relationships he had with certain people in commune. And a lot of them struggle with it. And I've come to understand that maybe the problem is that the personal relationship is in the way. It's created a separation. But I had quite an experience that really destroyed all that. It was Osho's parting gift after he died in 1990, January 19th. I was a security guard, of course, and it turned out that we were trying to open the crowds up so that there were thousands of people gathering all in their white robes in the burning ghats. And it's the same burning ghat that 10 years earlier, when I first came to Osho, I ended up doing the tantric meditation because I lived on Burning Ghat Road. It seems appropriate for a double Scorpio in 12th house. But so in Burning Ghat Road, whenever the little bells were tinkling, I would go down and I would watch the people burn. And I'd watch them for 3 hours on the first day and just sit there watching it all melting and bubbling and everything like that, facing all that destruction of the body. And then in the second day, I would position myself, because a lot of people were poor. They didn't have enough wood to really burn down the body. So a lot of the skeleton was there. And so I would look at the skull. Usually the skull was complete. I would stare right in the darkest point of its socket for 3 hours, just non-blinking, just half eyes open, very softly, gazing like one gazes at a lover, unblinking. And then the third time I went in the evening and meditated on the third day on the empty pit that had been cleaned. 10 years later, one of those pits that I meditated at, I was spending 3-hour sessions day and night for the 3 days after he left his body to be there to guard the ashes, because a lot of people were coming and they wanted to take ash and stuff. We wanted to keep that for the samadhi. And so I was at his left shoulder position on the third night at 3 a.m., the holiest hour in Indian experience. And I must say, as a guard in Osho's garden, it was an amazing thing that at 3, there from the west, spreading like a wave to the east, all the birds would just be like who were sleeping would go wah, 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 and then go back to sleep. And it was a wave, you hear it coming. And it was, you could feel the wave of it going west to east. All the animals stirring, going, bah, 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 and then go back to sleep. And then you'd start hearing the muezzins and the Brahmins start their prayers. So it was a very holy, magical time, because it's where the living world and the beyond world are very close. And so I started this work meditating at his left shoulder corner. And I almost felt, I was watching myself fall almost asleep, and then I stopped myself before I fell into the hot coals. Otherwise his face wouldn't look like this now. It would look a little more interesting, but so I got to stay there when the family came in, and the ritual of, I got to see firsthand why it's such an enlightened way in which India deals with death and deals with the understanding that people, when you quickly bury somebody, a lot of times people in limbo, they don't know they're dead, but you will always be hovering around those you're attached to and love. And then now you're seeing yourself burning. It really helps people to move on to the next thing, to the bardo. And so all these people, while we're crying, But I was looking at all the bones arranged in his ashes there, and the melted pearls of his hat and all of that, the shoulder socket that he used to dance with us so much with and do his bug-eyed Buddha blast towards the end, give him energy. And I felt something. I felt like I was going to explode with this joy that overcame me unexpectedly. And as everybody was mourning the loss of him and his body and his mortal existence, that's when it began to. He used to always say, he said, "When I'm gone, where can I go? I will be right here." He said, "When I am gone, your responsibility becomes greater. To live me, to be me." Because what Osho was is what we all are. We're all a bunch of candles with our wicks unlit. And it's just enlightenment is the most ordinary thing in existence. There is nothing more ordinary than being enlightened. That's why it's missed. That's why it often happens that you suddenly, when you realize that after lots of struggling, you go, is it really as simple as that? And the whole existence is like going, and even then it's difficult to take in, because then you start to watch all the ways in which we do things that we're taught to pretend not to be things, to be the being, and then you go deeper and deeper. So once one starts to just look at the hypothesis of being a Buddha pretending not to be, that really speeds up the process, because after a while, who's witnessing the pretending not to be can only be the Buddha. And then you get a knack for embracing a thing that is so free it does not exist. It's everywhere and nowhere at once. It's in everything, but completely free of everything that rises and falls. The ocean is free of the waves. The waves are only illusions of shape, containers of air, made of air. And we are taught to think that's reality. And the reality is not that at all. Or it's the play of appearances that reality loves to do. The reality loves to be a creator and make dramas. and so anyway, I sitting there suddenly with his family members digging into the goo, bringing up and crushing the bones into the urn, the Buddha's flowers. I suddenly began to feel an intimacy with my master that is because I let go of Osho as a physical person. And I simply saying that Osho is enlightenment is availability incarnate. And, sometimes it helps to see somebody with his wick lit, because Osho says, look, I'm doing nothing. I'm nobody. I'm just here. But I am a context. If this thing can happen to me, it can happen to you. It is already there. You just need a catalyst. A master is a catalytic agent. He doesn't do anything. You do all the doing. And yet there's this mystery that can happen. So I would say don't observe there. He's here right now. He's not a body anymore. It's this energy that is the very source of all of us is available. And, watching his discourses, seeing how he walked and talked and stuff can be reminders of that. But you're already the Buddha, just pretending not to be.
Beautiful. Thank you, John.
Sorry, I was so long-winded, but
No, that's all right.
I am a Wagnerian, so it's a problem. I was listening to Tristan and Isolde before I got on today.
No, I think this is all vitally important. The question, well, ultimately, not ultimately, but we've got this very practical concern of an exponentially overheating planet. And what do we do in this physical reality that we inhabit? And what do we do about that? And so you missed my, obviously the earlier parts of this conversation in which I talk about how it is now so plain to see that who I call the emperor, which is really the powers that be, the elite, politics, private sector, media, all fused in this fascist way, all fused together into one, emperor, let's say. The emperor has no clothes, and that's now, very, very plain to see for everyone. And so that creates an opportunity for the people to step in as a collective human intelligence through such forums as this one, which I see as pretty much totally unique. We're actually in the process of, seeking to launch multiple parallel forums so that different communities coming from their own respective perspectives can come together and engage in this kind of a process. And then we envision a federation of forums coming together as collective human intelligence at planetary scale, so that we can grapple with this thing that's happening to us and that it's happening to the whole planet, which is exponential overheating. And, what do we do in the face of that? And our conversations at a very practical level are gravitating towards geoengineering solutions as the only practical solutions to actually first stop and then reverse the exponential planetary overheating, which is in the process of destroying all of life on Earth. So anyway, I just wanted to.
I would just
Yeah,
say something about that. Thanks for saying that, because, my background, just people don't know, is I'm an author of 52 books and thousands of articles, and I'm published in 22 languages, and been published writing. My main passion has been trying, since I was so opened up by the Cuban Missile Crisis when I was 7, is to try to figure out this. I was always aware since then that the imminence of our self-destructing the world, and completely unconsciously in an auto-suicidal event. So I studied history. I wanted, like a pathologist studies, I studied history to understand why it keeps rhyming and why it's always coming back to the same problem in different clothes with different names of different religions and political existences. And then it just seems that as we grow exponentially, as a greater population of people pretending not to be Buddhas, it is creating a critical mass that a lot of the people in the Native American and fourth world prophets we're talking about, that the earth is gaining all this new energy from all these people, but because they're living lives as zombies, dreaming that they're awake. Since 1985, when we cleared 5 billion people, we reached a point, just like the Ganges finally reached a point not long ago, where it can no longer absorb the pollution. So the psychosphere, we have an ethnosphere, the ecological sphere, and then we have the subtle astral or psychosphere, and it's becoming a psychotic sphere because of people living unconsciously. And that is why a lot of the native people said, you'll see, people will just accept madness as normal, the new normal. And that's happening. People are openly, Stoltenberg of the NATO General Secretary going out, he was openly musing about, oh, well, let's just jump from stage 1 to stage 10 and just drop a tactical nuclear weapon on the gathering Russian forces. This is before the war happened, before NATO got into a proxy war with Russia. If you said that before 1987, you would be put away. It was like, what are you talking about? Now, so one of the symptoms of this zombie plague is people reasoning, especially in the West, that a nuclear war can be won. And you can only do that if you forget what happens in one of these. So anyway, I've been aware of climate change coming since I was about 18 years old, and I'm about to begin my 70th year. And I've been seeing it coming a long time. And I'm thinking that there's two things that have to happen. I mean, at one time I was doing a live show with Coast to Coast with George Noory at Everett Theater, about 1,000 people there, a very anti climate change group. So because the person was on before, he had everybody like applaud. Well, what do you think climate change is true? And like a few. And then the whole place went up with applause if it's a hoax. So when I got on as the final show, I said, I want all of you to raise your hand if you think climate change is a hoax. So 2/3 or more of the audience, 1,000, raised their hands and said, and it just dropped in there. I said, how many of you, because that was how many of you in the distant future in 2027 will discover that your life has been completely impacted in upheaval because the climate change is true? And a lot of them kind of when they went, what? And put their hands down. And the whole audience was like looking like tilting robots and stuff. And I said to them, remember this day in this moment and what happened. I mean, Merlin, whether he existed or not, other than beyond John Borman's wonderful Excalibur movie, he said, for it is the doom of men that they forget. And don't forget this, because in 2027, there's not going to be a lot of people who are going to think that this thing isn't coming. And moreover, the people who are becoming the tree-hugging Puritan goofballs who are, smearing paintings and doing all that, they're doing more damage to having a real dialogue about this with people and they're doing more harm to people getting in touch of this reality overcoming. But I say to people, because I always had lots of people going at me, and I said, well, what's your excuse? What's your answer to this? How's you proving that climate change is true? I said, the next 10 years. The next 10 years is my proof, because we've reached the point where it's actually got to get worse before people get real about this. Unfortunately, I mean, a lot of people saw World War II coming, and even prophets and people were trying to say, hey, Hitler's going to start World War II. You got to stop that. But people with open eyes walked into these catastrophes. So sometimes if one can see things beyond this is good, this is bad, but understand that all things in the moment can be an opportunity to grow. For instance, there's nothing wrong with being afraid. Fear is not a bad thing at all if it keeps you from putting your hand in the flames. So I think the human race is going to have to get to the end of the 2020s into the 2030s where they rightfully should play flight or fight and see this emergency. But I mean, it keeps coming. I mean, we are in a climate tipping moment I've been writing about since the 2023, where the ocean is like the Ganges. It can't contain these 400,000 atomic bombs a year of heat that it's containing. The oceans contain most of the heat. Now it's starting to release that heat in I was just watching it this morning, record-breaking temperatures in the Atlantic and the Gulf. And Beryl is a major anomaly, which is the new normal. Category 5, it never has happened this early. And it's a monster hurricane. It is sped up, but Otis last year, another monster, literally in 12 hours jumped to as it was hitting Acapulco, did this too. So unfortunately, you know, people couldn't fight World War II until it was bombing them. And sometimes that's when people can, this is such is the case. There's going, if anything, what is ironically needed is we keep trying to predict and show how this is going. But what our ironic ally is the global warming itself. It's going to get to a point where nobody can deny it's there. And then we have to really get serious about and drop our dogmas about certain industries that are bad. Like I talked to somebody about, well, what about if we could, I say to people, look, it's not about fossil fuels or nuclear power or pollution. It's as such is if we don't identify the problem, we can't find the right answer. The problem is CO2, too much CO2 and methane going into the atmosphere. So any industry should be considered, even those that are currently the literal building blocks of our society, like fossil fuels. We should be looking at ways to filter out or sequester. You know, if you can pump oil out of the rocks and start microquakes, why not liquefy methane and CO2 and fill it back in those holes and stop the earthquakes and take a lot of carbon issue out of the system. The other thing to think about is I'll finish soon, is that this thing is not going to be solved in our lifetimes or in another 1,000 years. This is just something that we're all going to have to teach future generations to adapt to for 1,000 years at least. We've already baked into the system enough to rise the oceans 130 feet in the next 200 years. So we're going to have to learn how to make mobile harbors and things like that. So it's that's at least, if one agrees with that theory or not, that's at least something we have to consider and plan for, even if it turns out not to be true, to the one that was shaking heads. So anyway, thank you for letting me speak inordinately long, but I thought since I'm going to be coming back that I would kind of give you a bit of backstory of where I'm coming from. So, and I actually have to go now, so I will hopefully get here earlier than before, but thank you for having the patience to listen to me.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for being here, John. We look forward to seeing you next week, if not sooner. We also meet here every Friday on the same Zoom link for the block.
What time?
Oh, we start at 8 in the morning with food healers, and which is about feeding everyone plant-based foods for free. And then I usually join around 10 or 11 on Friday, and then we have our noon podcast, The Start is Near, and then we go for the next several hours. So we hit a crescendo at noon and go for several hours every Friday.
And I came kind of around the right time.
Yeah, well, feel free to join us on Friday as well, and as well as next Tuesday.
Well, I'll do my best.
Okay.
And thank you, everybody. And thank you, Carolina and Mark and Aaron and Jackie and Jamin. See you, neighbor.
All right, neighbor. Love you. See you soon.
Love
John.
you. Love you, everybody.
Love you.
Bye-bye.
See you soon. All right. Well, Hurricane John has come, peaked, and moved on down the road. And thank you all for your patience there. And it was certainly quite enlightening. And Jackie is up next. Go ahead, Jackie.
Yes, I was just outside with our caregiver, and the Momotu is back, and I stayed there for quite a while watching him, and he said, go in there and tell them that every day at the end of a meeting you have to have a glimmer. Now that's what the Collapse Club calls it, and that's something that's positive. And what's positive is this enormous bird. I mean, he's big as a parrot. Just keeps hanging out. And because I put handrails all over here, I have 2 artificial hips and my husband's had a lot of heart attacks and strokes. So I have handrails outside so we can walk around. And the Momo2 just loves them. He's got iridescent eyeshadow, and below it's black, a little black place. And then his whole big chest looks like shining gold. And just now the sun's getting a little lower and it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon here. And then he has this huge long tail and it looks like a heart. Looks just like a heart at the very end of his tail. It's just an amazing bird. So I wanted to share a glimmer, something that's really wonderful in the world. It's called a Momo2. And what time zone are you in, Jaime?
I'm
You said you.
no, my name is pronounced Jamin, by the way. And
Oh, Jamin. I'm in the Spanish area. It would be Jaime. They call me Yaki.
No, I actually speak fluent Spanish, better than English,
Oh.
believe it or not. But anyway,
Wow.
I'm in Pacific time. I'm up in the state of
You're
Washington.
Pacific time. Okay, so if you're starting at 8, that would be 10 o'clock here. I'm just trying to figure out because my days are really crammed on Fridays. It's my busiest day. Okay, thank you so much. This is tesoro. It's a tesoro.
Eso sí.
Okay.
Un lindo tesoro. A treasure in English. Thank you, Jackie. Thank you for making it a treasure. It is a treasure and it is a treasure hunt at the same time. We are hunting for both the solutions and the meta solution to make this all happen in time. And by the way, I disagree with what John said about basically adaptation. The very nature of our overheating, because of the self-reinforcing feedback loops, is that it is exponential. And what we're living in right now is an intensifying hell on earth that is extinguishing over hundreds of species per day and wiping out vital ecosystems and life support systems of the planet, such as the Arctic and the AMOC. And we're not gonna, I'd be shocked if we survived even 2 more years of this exponential onslaught if we let it go unabated. So I'm all about not letting it go unabated, stopping the overheating and then reversing it with a substantial dose of reflectivity or solar radiation management or solar radiation modification, as some call it. Reflecting a small but significant percentage of incoming sunlight, say 2 or 3% on that order, reflecting that sunlight back into space,
right,
so that we reverse the heat imbalance. Right now we're net accumulating, net absorbing heat. The planet is net absorbing heat. So how do we shift that from net absorbing to net losing heat? Right? Shedding heat to outer space. And the most practical, and in fact, the only way that I know of that we have the technology for today, is reflectivity. Reflecting, reflecting that 2 or 3% or whatever percentage we reach consensus on, reflecting that percentage of incoming sunlight back into space. Currently, the planet, the Earth, atmosphere, ocean, ice system is reflecting a little under 30% of incoming sunlight back into space. We used to be reflecting over 30%, but with the loss of ice and the dirtying of the remaining ice, as well as the, just in terms of reflectivity, those are the main factors. And changes in cloud cover, etc. We're reflecting less energy back, less sunlight back into space than we used to be. So we're net absorbing more. And then that absorbed heat is having a harder and harder time to escape as infrared because of the greenhouse gases, right? So we urgently need to, the only practical way to reverse that heat imbalance is reflectivity. We simply do not have the carbon capture and storage technologies. Much as I love the idea of absorbing carbon and storing it underground or wherever it can be stored, much as I love that concept, the technology is simply not there.
Right.
You know, so we have to deal with the hand that we've got, not the hand that we want. I'd love to have a hand of cards that says, oh yeah, no, you can capture and, you know, and all this carbon and just draw it all down. And then we have no problem cooling off the planet that way. That'd be wonderful. But we've got to deal with the reality that we're in. And that leads us directly to reflectivity, solar radiation modification, solar radiation management, like marine cloud brightening, to reverse the heat imbalance. There's simply no other way. And I think that we can find a way to demonstrate that very clearly. You know, how did most of humanity on Earth find out about World War II? It was through newsreels and radio, right? Media that was able to convey the reality that was happening to, you know, the few billion people who inhabited the planet at the time. And then, you know, we were able to mobilize, and, you know, the rest is history. Right now, we need to be able to use the media that we have to convey these truths to humanity as a whole, and more strategically to specific segments of humanity in a way that is optimal for getting the right segments and sectors of humanity to actually implement the solar radiation modification technologies that we most urgently need, most importantly, marine cloud brightening.
Sure.
To my understanding, passing the feather.
Will Dr. McPherson, Guy McPherson, will he be here next time? Because he has an excellent video. I've never seen it anywhere else, where he puts down the little 5 millimeter high piece of styrofoam, and within a very short time, it's knocking over the Eiffel Tower or something that big. Have you seen that video?
I'm actually the one who showed him that video.
Oh, can you show it next time? Because I think it would open a lot of eyes.
Yeah, I'll see if I can find it here.
I took the deeper dive course through Sterling University in Vermont, and in that they had an excellent video, and what they were using was a huge stadium, and it talking about at what point what would happen, and but it wasn't as effective as that one. That one is so effective because it's fast and it's visual.
Beautiful. So here, let me stop this recording and I'll start a new one in a second, but let me go ahead and share that video.